beautiful Monday. It is April the 27th. It is the 46th straight day now with no live sports, but we've got plenty to talk about. The NFL draft in the books. Another 2 chapters of The Last Dance. And we had a little trauma almost over the weekend with the Tigers' prize transfer, who almost was going to go to the NBA and then decided not even to test the waters. Welcome in today. We will be busy, that is for sure. Ryan Poe from the Commercial Appeal is going to join us. And we've got our good friend David Cobb, Joe Klein, who has been a part of The Last Dance, was on that great Chicago Bulls team with Michael Jordan. He'll join us. We weren't able to catch up with Bruce Marshall on Friday. He'll join us about 5 o'clock today. And so we've got plenty of things to do live from the avenues of the Americas in the great city of Forest City is Brett Norsworthy. How are you?
I'm doing well, Dave. That introduction almost has a ring to it, like New York City, Forest City.
There you go. Just a difference of population by about 6 million.
There have been times the city doesn't sleep. But
well, your part might not have anyway.
And I help keep it awake
Yeah.
a lot of those times. But good to hear your voice today, Dave. I guess I'll see you again in our live forum.
I hope so. I truly
hope so
do. And we do have news, and I'll give it to you as we go along here. But the mayors are all meeting from this metro area,
Yes.
or at least the part of Tennessee. And they've decided, and rightfully so, that if we're so close, we all have to do this together with one plan. It will be a slow opening. And, here's one of the things you really have to look for. And it's not the number of cases. And I'll give you all those a little bit later. We had more, really, the last 24 to 48 hours than we've had because there was more testing being done.
Exactly.
But, and I like their rationale here. The hospitalized cases have to either be stable or go down for a 14-day period before we can really start to open. And that's the guidelines that they will go by. There's different phases. There's going to be some capacity of restaurants, some capacity of libraries at 25% in the first phase. Non-essential retail will open up at about 50%. But this is all still to come. We're not there yet.
That's it, Dave, and it's a very measured plan. And I think you were. It was one day you may have already cut out for the day, and Drew and I were talking about it. But this is the perfect example of, and we've all done it, or had it happen to us, or somebody we care about, or at minimum somebody we know. There's nothing more aggravating than going in for that medical procedure. You have it. You bite the bullet, you go through whatever procedure it is, you have your hospital stay, they let you go home, and you look up and you're right back there because it's too soon or something happened or it didn't work, and you're right back and you're thinking, we've done this. We've been, to square one. We don't want to go back to square one, and there are places, every place is not the same, and over the Great Plains of Montana and Idaho, they can kind of restart, but in a very densely populated area like we have, there's no need in not finishing this off to the best ability, and then it could be the case of, as Mayor Harris I think more enunciated, that there could be if there's a spike, there could be shutdowns again. And
right.
That would be disappointing. It would be aggravating. It'd be all those things that we already are, but we can see some light. And Dave, one good thing, I guess there's been, out of everything comes something good. And out of this, we know the ability with the Presidential Powers Act that we can make ventilators. There's no question about that.
We can.
And we can ramp up tests. Now, some of the tests, unfortunately, not all, but some of them are, it's a little bit of kind of the Wild West out there. Some of them, I think there's a lot of false negatives in some of them. But we'll get that down. But we also through this, and we're not closed over. I think we're 1 or 2 outs, bottom of the second, of a 9-inning game. Let's hope this joker doesn't go extra innings. But we have learned
that would be the second wave if that indeed comes.
Exactly.
And Dr. Fauci thinks that it will come.
But we have learned, and we were scared of it. Dave, if this didn't kind of immobilize our hospital, shut them down, too much to bear, then we got a pretty strong hospital medical community nationwide. If this didn't overload it, if this didn't flip the circuit breakers, it got close. It was scary in some places, and it still is. I mean, it's not close to over, but there's no need to push that and run that risk.
Well, I'm comforted by the fact that the old commercial appeal building will have all those hospital beds if we need them. I'm comforted.
In case.
I'm comforted by the fact that another place on Jackson Avenue, the old shopping center that they have, that will also be ready in case we need it, as long as we are prepared. I hope they keep producing, at least until we have a vaccine, as many tests as we can possibly have to really have the sense that we know where we are. There was a great, and I don't know who the cartoonist was. It was a great cartoon, and I took stock of it because it hit home with me. The cartoon, picture a rectangle on the left side. There is a bunch of protesters just sick of being quarantined and ready to go and open the economy. And these people, you know, they're and this is sad. They're going broke. They're seeing their savings go. They're wondering how they're going to be able to pay rent. They're wondering how they're going to get food, and they're desperate and they're protesting. Open up the thing. And then there is on the right, behind to the right of the barriers of where the protesters are, there is a nurse, and she is in full body armor. She's one of the frontliners trying to protect us all and make sure anybody who's sick is going to be taken care of. And she's got a sign, and she shows it to the protesters. Okay, we'll see you soon. And
that's right.
That really hit me, that we have to really take a look and do this in small steps. Look, I'm sick of it too. I've got friends that are socializing. They do it with social distance. But my wife's very, very by the book here. And, you know, she says, well, you're 67. You're in that high-risk thing. I'm healthy as can be, but I get it. I understand. And I don't want to bring anything home to her, so I try to be as good as I can. I can't wait for this thing to come to an end. But I also understand why the rules are in place. And I don't want to see this where we have more New York cities because we opened up too soon.
And I don't think a single utterance out of your mouth there has been unreasonable or something that we can't do. I said from the beginning, I won't say that I was a virus skeptic. I will admit that I just didn't think it would happen to us. I know that's naive. You could say just pure dumb if you'd like. I'll admit to it. I just didn't think it would happen to us. I don't know on 29th of February, 1st of March, 5th of March, exactly what I thought would be a fatality rate, but I sure didn't think it'd be 55,000. And I didn't think that what we've gone through, what we will continue to go through, we would have been through. But I did say this at the beginning, when it was really getting close to home. I think on the night of the Wichita State Tigers game, I think that was Thursday night, March 5th, I closed the show. You were already down at FedEx Forum with your duties as play-by-play announcer. I closed the show. If you are scared, if you think you could catch something, please do not go. Don't risk it. If you think you need to wear a mask, if you need to wear gloves, do so. Right now, I don't think so. I'm not going to. If I see you, I'll shake hands with you. I'll give you a bear hug, and I'm going to continue that. These almost are the exact words. Drew could find it and run the tape. And I'm going to continue that until higher authorities, mayor, governor, president, medical, tell me differently. Well, they told me differently. And since then, I've tried to toe their line.
Well, that's the smart thing to do. Now we know. I would tell you that the night of the Wichita State-Memphis game, I never thought this was going to be the way it is.
Oh, no.
I mean, let's be honest with you. I think I had an inkling right before it all happened. I made that comment. I know we brought it up, and I'm not trying to tell you I had any great view of this, but I knew everything would change as soon as we had an athlete.
You sure did.
That was going to get it. And I knew right then and there this was something serious, that it had come from Wuhan and that it wasn't letting up. And and I hate to say this because this is my gut feel, we're not going to really ever totally return to the way we were until we have a treatment and a vaccine. I do believe that I'll shake hands with you. I'll give you a bear hug when we have the medicine that will. I
think I accidentally bear hugged you leaving the last time I saw you. I said, "Oh hell, we're not going to die. Give me a hug."
That could be. I think we did.
I know I did.
But you know what? That's well past 2 weeks. We're good.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. But we don't know. I mean, I would have never believed in 1995 that I would have to be at the airport 2 hours early and basically undress again. You know, we get up in the morning to go on a trip and we get dressed and then we undress again at the airport. I would have never believed I would have to go through that, and that after a while it'll just be baked in the cake. It'll be fine. Take shoes off. Everybody see my ugly old feet. You put your shoes in the basket. You put your laptop in there. We got used to it. Now this will be a little more different because we were scared of that. We were scared of possible terrorism and things like that. We might need to stay on the alert about things like that. I hope everything else hadn't been left unwatched while we're just watching this by governmental agencies. But we will get used to this. This will take a while. It will take a while before we go back to hearty handshakes and things like that and crowds. And the NBA today already they've jumped out there and kind of kicked back their reassembling point. It was supposed to be this Friday the 1st. Now that date's already moved for them to have practice, and we're a long ways before you see somebody playing belly button to belly button defense in the NBA game.
Well, they may be allowed to go back to their facilities, but
they can't have contact.
But not just that. I'm not sure that you can have a mass gathering in this state at this point, in this county, I should say, until Mayor Strickland and Mayor Harris say you can. Yeah. So the NBA might be able to open in Georgia. They may be able to open their facility in Orlando and in Miami because those states have come back to more opening. But that's not the case in Memphis. Now, that doesn't mean that the Grizzlies couldn't go to Florida and practice if they wanted to, if that was going to be
or to Jonesboro.
Or to Jonesboro, for that matter. If the governor there, let's be honest, he didn't want you traveling through his state just 2 weeks ago.
And it's worked.
And it has worked. And I'm not putting it down. I'm just saying – he's got to open it up where he's going to allow gatherings of more than 10 people, and you'll go from there. I understand why the NBA is trying to move forward, and they're doing it in small ways. Because when Adam Silver said we were going to open up, he said this by no means that we're deciding we're going to continue with the season. We're just going to allow our facilities to be open if the governments allow it. But that's not going to be true in every state. And at this point, when they can open up next week, it would not be legal at this point to do so unless the mayor gives them, I guess, their blessing, some sort of, a loophole in the deal. Because otherwise, until May, I think he's got this thing through May 5th, and he'll make a decision then. I don't see how you could do it.
I don't either. And we just have to wait a little bit longer, but there's some light. I think I think the next 2 or 3 weeks will be a little more clarity for everything, but for sure in the sports world, just pure guess on my part. Last week, it felt a little like baseball and basketball, which is kind of all right. This week, let the big monolith that is the NFL just steamroll everything, and let's stay out of the way, buy a little more time, and come up with a plan. And I don't know if that it'll be this week, but it feels like one will have to be coming in a few weeks. You mentioned the 46 days, no live sports due to COVID-19. We just went through the 7th straight weekend with no sports, and we're now about 40 5 days out until the Charles Schwab at Colonial in Fort Worth. I watched it. I keep an eye on that tournament every year, like that tournament, like the history of it. Been on that course. I know you have.
Yeah.
You've played it. I'm sure you played it excellently, as you do most courses.
I won a tournament on there, but
I
it had nothing to do with me. we had a guy from the University of Houston golf team that
he was just crushing it.
Yeah, Jim Dent and I we just sat and watched.
Yeah, but man, Dave, I'm not kidding you. I'll watch it that weekend. I've never needed the Chuck Schwab Classic more.
It really did strike me though how we're so desperate, right? Because you just said the Schwab is in 46 days. Is that what you said?
45, yeah.
Okay, that is exactly as long as we've had no sports.
That's it.
We're like only halfway to the first time we're going to get it. Well, we get little things here though, little treats like the last dance last night. And I know we'll talk about that in this draft, which the Tigers got 3 guys drafted. That's 3 years in a row they've had multiple guys. I won that stake
bet with you too.
What was? Oh, you did. Was that a stake bet?
Oh yeah.
No, I don't think that was a stake bet. Drew, was that a stake bet?
I believe it was, and I believe if Brett won, I also got steak and whiskey.
Lobster. That's correct.
Yes. I believe that's how it worked out.
This truly. I thought you weren't doing the ganging up thing anymore.
I'm not ganging up. It's benefiting myself.
Like it is.
I see.
If it benefits me, then I'm going that way.
Yeah.
Come on, Dave. You're not asking. Dave, you would never, because a lot of things you are, David William Woloshian, but a falsehood. I hate to use that L word, but you do not lie. You are not a liar.
No.
And I mean, you tell the truth, sometimes brutally honest. You're asking Drew to lie? That's
I'm not.
Really,
I'm just trying. I was just asking for some sort of clarification here because my memory might not be as good as I thought. I was up 2 or 3.
That's what we're here for.
I thought I was
your
up
memory.
2 or 3 steak dinners.
Lobster, whiskey for Drew.
How about that though? Seriously. I was so happy for Claybrooks, and I was so happy for Woodard. Woodard's played 3 different positions for the U of M.
He was everywhere. And Dave, both of y'all, you and Drew both, last summer when we were leading up to Tigers Ole Miss week, of course, you know who I was for, but I also recognize it lost to a really fine team in the year that it kicked off for them. I had my questions about that Tiger offensive line. That was my biggest summertime dubiousness of that matchup and of last season. And look who cobbled it together.
Yeah.
Now he's the head coach.
Well, that is correct. And you know what? Another part of that, and a guy who really only played 1 year, Scotty Dell, he got a free agent deal out of that. It did strike me. There was something that was very obvious to me. 63 players from the best conference in America, the SEC, proved positive again. We mentioned all those first-round guys. Almost half the first round were SEC guys. 14 from LSU, 9 from Alabama, 7 from both Georgia and Florida, 6 from Mississippi State. I'm sorry. I think it was A&M and then 5 from Mississippi State. The only school that didn't have a player drafted was Ole Miss. And what really struck me about that was
there's
no doubt about it. The NCAA probation was penal. There's just no way around it.
We had the living death penalty. I mean, you could play and you could have people come to the stadium and you could compete, and there were some games to be won. There were some games that probably lost that could have been won, and some won that probably should have been lost. That kind of worked out through the 17, 18, and 19 season. You win the wild one up at Kentucky with DK Metcalf, but you lose a narrow game to Arkansas and Oxford that same year. It kind of worked out. But what really worked out is, especially after AJ and DK go pro last year and Greg Little, that it was just bereft of any real big time talent and playing in that SEC West. Here's one. There's a lot of things in sports. There's a lot. We're not going to do that show today, but there are a lot of records in sports that aren't going to be broken. DiMaggio hitting 400. Dolphins undefeated. We could go on and on. Here's one. 14 straight years for the SEC to lead with most players drafted. So that means if starting next year the Big Ten won it, they would have to go to 2035 to break it. Ain't happening. Not happening. This hour brought to you every day by Lexus of Memphis, 2600 Ridgeway, and online at lexusofmemphis.com. Call them at 901-362-8833. Lexus of Memphis offering the Golden Opportunity Spring Sales Event. Great offers on all the 2020 models and always on special lease options. If you've ever thought, I'd look great in a Lexus, well, guess what? Lexus of Memphis thinks you would look great in one of their beautiful cars as well. Drive in luxury and confidence knowing that every new Lexus comes with complimentary first and second maintenance services. Stop by today at Lexus of Memphis at 2600 Ridgeway and put yourself in the driver's seat of an all-new 2020 flagship LS500, and you'll be looking and driving great. Lexus of Memphis, the highest standards in the industry. When you purchase a Lexus, you get top-of-the-line engineering and design, and that makes for the luxury driving experience. 901-362-8833. Online at lexusofmemphis.com. Experience amazing at Lexus of Memphis.
Top story of the day.
Well, we've talked about it a bunch. The mayors have met, and they have said basically they are going to stick to one plan to open Memphis back up. So far, we have 187 new cases, the number higher than usual because we are getting more tests. The key thing will be hospitalization. How many cases get hospitalized? That's the number that we've really got to start watching to make sure that stays steady or declines. You have to have 2 straight weeks of that to really start to open things up. The best news about the 187 new cases over this last day? Zero deaths. That leaves us now at a little over 2,300 cases and 45 have passed away. In the new plan to reopen, elective surgeries will be available to be done, and that really goes a long way. Everybody, when you think about an elective surgery, I know a lot of people are thinking, well, that could be a nose job or some sort of plastic surgery.
Hip replacement.
That's right. Hip replacement, knee replacements. People are in pain. They really need to have these done. So those will come back. And so will 50% of non-essential retail, 50% of the restaurants, at least to start. And I'll be honest with you, for me, and I've been thinking about this, I don't know that I would go to a restaurant per se. I'll do the takeout. I want to support them as best I can. And I'm not trying to give anybody a plug. I'm just thinking out loud. There's a great little Mexican restaurant in Cooper Young. I believe it's called Cafe Olé.
Yeah.
They've got this huge patio. If you were to take 50% of the seats out of that patio, you got social distancing really easy. I'd go to something like that, but I don't think I would go inside, not at this point. Libraries, 25% of the capacity will be used. Dashboard today, we're 2,662,000 and change. Over 183,000 have passed globally from the COVID-19. 740,000 have recovered in the United States. We're approaching 48,000, and we have 8,400 who've recovered. I'm sorry, we have 850,000 cases. We've had 47,800 who have passed. 84,000 have recovered. In Tennessee, 7,400 cases, 157 deaths. In Mississippi, we're approaching 5,000 cases. 193 have passed away. In Arkansas, still the lowest, 2,276, 42 fatalities. Those are the numbers from the dashboard.
Now, Dave, nationwide in the United States, currently, there's over 55,000 fatalities.
When I looked, and this was about 1 o'clock today,
it's higher than that.
The numbers that I had gotten were 47,800. So
no, we're sadly at around 55,000. That's a big number, and I'd like to hear from somebody at 67129 at the text line. I'm not trying whatsoever to embarrass or shame anyone, but I'd like to hear from somebody, and I know it's always hard for any of us to admit when we were wrong. On March 10th, 11th was the day of the Rudy Gobert. 12th was the day of the last day of sports. 13th was the beginning of no sports going forward, and then the nationwide shutdown that following Monday. I'd like to hear from somebody that will admit those days I never dreamed it'd be 55,000. I didn't think this was this big a deal.
When I saw the numbers of what was going on in Italy, that's when I knew. That's when
Italy was big.
That's when I felt like it could happen. Whatever the date is for that, I know when we were playing Wichita State, and you felt much more comfortable about
March
things.
5th.
March 5th. I had no idea it had the gravity that it would have. But I think when we saw the progression in Europe, especially in Italy, I think that's when we knew this is coming, and we better be prepared.
My top story, NFL draft, it's complete. Next big NFL news will be late next week or into the next week with the 2020 schedule release. How many different versions? Will it be the traditional start, finish date? Will it be Plan B? Will it be Plan C? And then after that, football is next, college and pro, for the next big round of postponements or cancellations. It will be up to football after that. They've really had the best case so far because it was out of season. The idea of no football, college and pro, it's very real for 2020 in the fall. Right now, I would probably say the odds are better than not that we won't have football in the fall.
I think I think there will be some football in the fall, but it's how late in the fall. I don't think you're going to get it September 1st, the first week of September. I would agree with that, but I do think every effort will be made that it'll be delayed a bit and will carry over. I still, and you know what? Maybe we'll really know more in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and there's plenty of time to judge it, but we'll know if we don't have setbacks from people opening up like Georgia and Florida, if we don't have spikes and Colorado, if we don't have spikes that return, then I'll feel a little bit better about that.
Not top story of the day.
This is a terrible story. It comes from Georgia, but it's about Tyshawn Hightower, who was the Tulane Green Waves leading scorer in 2019 and 20. He was arrested late Saturday for felony murder, aggravated assault, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, and battery following an investigation into a fatal shooting in Stockbridge, Georgia, earlier in the month. Now his lawyer has come out and said he never touched the gun. It was his brother who fired on the victim because he had a gun, and it was in self-defense. So stay tuned. But when you get hit with that many charges, it would be hard for me to believe the Georgia Sheriff's Office was that way off.
We'll see. My not top story, the Detroit Pistons were some really bad boys.
Oh, they were.
I love people that are just now discovering that. We knew it, and they didn't care. They didn't care then. I don't think they care now. Drew, what do the kids today call the bad guy at wrestling?
Oh, the heels.
They didn't mind being the heel then. They don't mind being it now. And you talking about sports hatred through the years. Usually with passage of time, retirement, you've been through the wars together, it abates, it sure lessens a little. Michael Jordan and Isaiah Thomas hate each other much now as they did in 1990.
Well, that was pretty evident last night,
sure
for certain.
Was.
And it was interesting. I'm a little tainted. I watched the All-Star game in the NBA. The first one I ever covered was the only one I ever covered. It was in Dallas the year I just happened to be there. And that was the year Isaiah Thomas tried to get everybody to freeze out Michael Jordan. So these guys were always sort of enemies. There was no question about it. And Isaiah, who I don't usually feel sorry for, has gone on to say, he said today on ESPN's Wake Up, that he feels like he didn't get on the Dream Team because it was either Michael or him. Maybe that was
no doubt Michael Jordan vetoed
it. That Michael said, that's not it. And
that
frankly,
was with Isaiah Thomas's coach as the coach,
right? And the truth is, his legacy has always been sort of tainted by that. The other guy on that side, Lambeer, said, "I don't give a darn what anybody thinks about me. I just played to win. I don't care. I didn't want to shake their hands. They whine too much." So there is still this animosity between them, this past, way past the time that it occurred. It is interesting. Those are your top and your not top stories. We're going to chat with Ryan Poe from the Commercial Appeal. his sense of what's going on. Maybe he was around for the mayor's press conferences today. We shall chat with him in just a minute. We are just underway on this gorgeous Monday on Sports Time on Sports 56 with Wolo and Stats.
Spend your lunch with Greg Gaston and Eli Savoy on Sports 56 middays, delivered by FedEx. Weekdays from 10 to 1 on Sports 56, 96.1 and 87.7.
If you're going on vacation, making a college campus visit, or if business takes you out of town, there's just no better place to board your dog than Barks and Recreation, 965 Reddick Cove between Bud Davis Cadillac and the Blue Plate Cafe in East Memphis. Boarding, daycare, grooming, we have the best of everything at Barks. Indoor-outdoor kennels so your family member can go in and out as they please. Indoor and outdoor play areas. 4 walks a day. Group play and individual attention from the best staff in the Mid-South, which includes an overnight staff to ensure the safety and comfort of your pet 24 hours a day. All reasons to choose Barks and Recreation above all other boarding and daycare facilities. BarksDaycare.com or 509-0909. Check us out and make your reservations now at BarksDaycare.com. If your dog could speak, he'd say Barks.
Hi, I'm Troy Five-Ash, owner of Five-Ash Roofing. Do you have any idea why I never speak the way I am right now? It's because if you're honest, sincere, and knowledgeable, you do not need fast-talking, high-energy, gimmick-promising advertising to get a customer's attention. Speaking of that, how do you think companies can offer huge rebates and giveaways when you use their services or buy their products? By overcharging you in the first place, that's how. Five-Ash Roofing doesn't operate that way. It's misleading and dishonest. When I provide a customer with the best products and the best service possible and do it at a fair price, why would I need gimmicks to sell it? Best products, best warranties, and best service possible. That's all we offer. Well, that and financing. Five-Ash Roofing, proud partner of the Memphis Tigers and the official roofer of the Memphis Tigers home team. Five-Ash Roofing, fair, honest, and ethical. 367-0050 or memphisroofer.com. 367-0050 or memphisroofer.com.
Five-Ash Roofing, it's what we do. We're here for you.
I'm Dr. George Flynn, physician and owner of the Skin Clinics. I've been paying very close attention to the challenges we all face with COVID-19, and I want you to know that the Skin Clinics will not open until we can safely provide that level of service that you, our clients, have come to expect. We look forward to serving you soon and safely. In the meantime, we're currently taking reservations to be assigned an appointment time when we reopen. Call 901-345-SKIN. We're going to get through this together.
Sports 56 would like to recognize local businesses that are out there still feeding and providing for the community via curbside pickup. Let's support local business with your business. These local businesses include Central Barbecue, Sunrise, Sweetgrass, Humdingers, Germantown Commissary, Jason's Deli, Corky's, East Coast Wings, Moe's, and Soulfish Cafe. Sports 56 appreciates the support of local businesses always, but especially during this time. Thank you.
Now, back to Sports Time on Sports 56 with Wolo and Stats. This hour of Sports Time is brought to you by Lexus of Memphis. Here once again are Dave Woloshin and Brett Norsworthy.
Ryan Poe from the Commercial Appeal will join us here momentarily. I'll let you know this portion of the show is brought to you by Conway Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electric, and of course, that famous tune-up, 16-point Energy Saver Super Tune-up. They come and they really, really get that thing humming. And it's all about making sure it cools your house when it gets really hot. It's going to be hot this weekend. But on top of that, if it's in sync, it saves you money because it's efficient, your house is cool, and your system lasts longer. And the way they do this is they go into your house and they will absolutely tinker around and make sure 16 particular points inside are all in harmony. Then they'll replace your filters, and then they go outside and they do this incredible job on your outside unit where all the leaves and all the dirt and all the grime have gathered, and they're actually going to take a little Teflon coating and paint that on your blades to protect it from the hot summer sun, and then you're good. And they do this for $69.57 if you get in by the end of this week with the early bird. 384-3511, 384-3511. That's Conway Services, heating, cooling, plumbing, electric, and, of course, famous for that 16-point energy-saving super tune-up.
We are very honored to have Ryan Poe join us now from the Commercial Appeal. You can follow Ryan on Twitter at Ryan Poe. He writes the 901, a weekday column that blends Memphis news and commentary for the Commercial Appeal. And Ryan, a lot of news today from the mayors, the assemblage of mayors in our community, Shelby County Mayor Harris and Memphis City Mayor Strickland and other mayors in the area. So let's start there with we're getting close. I think we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but the mayor's all warned we got a lot more and certainly a little more work in this time period to go.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, first of all. And, like you said, today was a big day. We finally got the reopening plan from the mayors. So the gist of it is that we have to have 14 days where we don't see any new COVID-19 cases. So after that 14-day period, then we're going to move into phase one, which is reopening some retail and restaurants half capacity and allowing churches to meet with 25% capacity. So and then it's another 14 days. It kind of goes on from there. So in a 14-day phases. That's kind of where we are now.
Let me ask clarification on that, Ryan. I think I might have been reading you. Wasn't it hospitalized cases? Because we are getting more cases now because we have got more testing. But wasn't it going to be either stable or declining hospitalized cases to be the benchmark for when we knew we were coming out of this? It had to be 14 straight days?
I believe, and I need to go back and check it, but I believe it's just cases.
Just cases.
And I think the reason for that is, they're worried about the spread. Not so much the severity of the spread as the actual spread. So they're going to take into account things like, increases in testing. Over the weekend we saw a surge in cases, and that was just because we had so much testing kind of at the end of last week and over Saturday. So that contributes to surges, but yeah, I think 14 days of declining or flat case counts is what they're looking for.
Right, I said earlier to Dave, there's a couple of victories, a couple of things we've learned from this, and I think one is if we didn't overload the hospital system in the United States with this one, we got to think if we have another one or a national nightmare, if this one didn't collapse it, then almost nothing will. It bent a lot of places, and a lot of places were real, and the healthcare workers sure have been put out and have been so valiant. But I think we can take that as a win out of this.
I definitely think so. But I've been thinking a lot about your point there, which is that things are not going to go back to how they were before. I think this is going to radically change the medical system. I think it's going to change how we are preparing for pandemics in the future. Because with a global world, we've got trade happening every day between, hundreds of countries. It's just the rate at which pandemics can spread is incredible. Unless we are going to be changing foreign policy dramatically, we're going to have to really ramp up our preparation for these kind of events.
This first phase of opening up, does this come after that 14-day period? So really we don't have a set date. He'll let us know on May 5th or right around there whether or not he's going to open this?
Exactly. It could come 14 days from now, probably at the earliest, but they have not set a firm date. So it could be earlier, it could be later. We just really don't know yet. They've said it's going to be made based on the data that they're seeing. So up to this point, we have seen a slowing rate of cases coming in. So it potentially could turn around and they could make that declaration relatively soon. But again, it's not going to be a lightning fast reopening. This is going to be a very slow, long process drawn out over at least the course of, a month and a half, and probably more than that.
It will take a long time economically, but even just social interaction wise. Ryan, this story, I couldn't begin to put the end date on it.
Yeah, no, it's going to, the economic consequences alone, I think, are going to last for well over a year. I estimate, and I've seen estimates putting it in mid 2020 or 2022. Sorry. So it's just the economics are going to be long lasting, and of course, our day-to-day lives are going to be greatly impacted. We've got so many people filing for unemployment, in addition to just regular, family kind of interactions and, the ways this has changed all of our lives. It's going to be a very strange next couple of years, probably.
I would say the community in Memphis, our metro area, though, has really done a pretty good job of following the rules for the most part. We have not seen some of the protests that you've seen other places. And I know we've got as much economic hardship as any other place, but I would say, Ryan, you tell me if I'm wrong, we've been a pretty darn well-behaved community.
Well, I think there have been some mobile cell phone data that the New York Times had that showed that Shelby County was one of the ones in the nation who were, traveling the most locally. I think that's probably because of our sprawl. We're as sprawled, in our city as New York City. Our city footprint is as big. I think that's probably largely the reason for that. But yeah, I tend to agree with you. I mean, we had a protest here maybe a week or two ago where, people came out to protest the shutdown, and I think 7 people showed up, and compared to hundreds in Nashville. I think that's a good sign that we are where we should be as far as just being level-headed about this whole
and almost a cruel twist of irony, because we all know that often Beale Street Music Fest has been Memphis in mud. We've had to battle a lot of rain and a lot of conditions through the years. Yep. I've been a part of that mud. I don't know when I'll be a part of it again, Ryan. I think those days are over. And I look at the forecast for this weekend that would have been Beale Street Music Fest. 77 a high, no rain. 81 a high, no rain. 83 high, no rain. I mean, come on, give us a break, somebody.
So that's the way it always happens, Just when you need it, the rain doesn't show up, and when you don't need it, it shows up in waves.
Do you think since it has been rescheduled for the fall, what is it, October?
Yeah.
Do you really believe that we'll be open enough to have a gathering that large on Tom Lee Park?
Yeah, I don't think it'll look anything like what we've seen in the past if we do it. And I also don't think that people are going to show up in the droves that they used to. Me personally, we've had to make, we've had a conversation in my family, where I don't think we're going to be going to any large crowded events for probably the rest of the year. And I think that most people are probably going to be looking at things on a case-by-case basis. But, those kind of events where it's shoulder to shoulder, I don't think those are going to happen.
Yeah, when you get conditioned to not be around it, and for the public safety front, it's just going to hard to immediately go back. Ryan, I've thought about New Year's Eve in New York City. I just can't believe this year we'll see Ryan Seacrest from Times Square and 1 million people jammed in there like sardines.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, if they do have anything, it'll probably be mostly virtual. And probably, what little crowd they do have there is going to be spaced out with a capacity cap. So, and the same for, any events like that in Memphis, it's going to look very different from the past.
In the press conferences today with the mayors, did anybody at all ask anything about sporting events coming back and how they would do that?
That is a very good question. I am not aware that anyone asked the question, but that is a very important question. They did not mention sporting events as being part of Phase 1. So they would be coming in Phase 2 or Phase 3, I assume.
Because if you think about that, and obviously they're beholden to the organized leagues, but we all are thinking, well, FedEx Forum and the Grizzlies, they could be playing the Lakers right now, first round of the playoffs. The bottom line is, though, the Memphis Redbirds would be smack dab in the first couple of weeks of their season, and the 901 FC would have probably played about 7-8 games by now, And so those would be on the docket now. Those are outside. Those you could limit, I guess, with the stadium if you did it one every third, maybe third of capacity, or like the library, 25% of capacity. It's outside.
Right.
That might be feasible, but I haven't heard anybody address that yet. And partly that could be because the leagues themselves, the Pacific Coast League and the USL Championship League, would have to go, okay, we're back.
Yeah. And another factor, too, is, like with the FedEx Forum, seating wouldn't be itself a problem. You could space people out, at good intervals. But on getting out of there, what do you do in those crowded corridors? And, it'd just be kind of a nightmare to do. I think they can probably do it, and they probably will find a way to do that slowly. But, I don't see that happening, in the near future.
Ryan, I readily admit that I saw this story. I didn't see it coming, but in February you're hearing about it way over there, and it's getting closer and closer, and it moves from if you're looking at the old-fashioned newspaper, it went from kind of page 17C to page 4 to page 3 to 6-inch banner headlines the night of the Rudy Gobert incident. That's kind of when it really hit me. When did it hit you? When did you see this story and think, well, we got one on our hands here?
I think it was about that time. I think it may have been even the day before that, the Tuesday before that happened. I think that happened on a Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And so I'd prepared to write a column, that just saying, it's time to think about shutdown, or shutting some things down. And I had a conversation with some folks at the paper, and we, and there was a lot of skepticism. Is it really that time? And then the next day came, and then we were all, on the same, on board with the idea that yes, this is a serious thing that needs to be considered now as far as the shutdown.
One of the other areas I'm wondering about, and I don't know if this was addressed today either, and that's airports, and which are getting a bunch of money from the government, and flights, and airlines. Maybe some won't make it. I really have no idea. But we had Congressman Steve Cohen on last week, and he was talking about how he took a nonstop from Memphis to Washington, D.C. last week so we could vote on the PPP bill. And there were 7 people on that direct flight, Memphis to Washington, D.C. What was said, if anything, about the airport, aviation, and when that might come back?
I think that's more of a federal, decision. I don't think the city and local mayors are going to be getting involved in that much. I do know, speaking of Cohen, he wants to make wearing a face mask, mandatory now for airplane or for flights. So that's going to be something that's going to have to be looked at. I don't think that's going to come at a local level, though.
Ryan, I think wearing a face mask on flights now might be standard issue, and I don't see anything wrong with it. I do, again, to the credit, I think we have learned, all right, maybe we shouldn't have all the handshaking we've had through all the years, and come cold and flu season, we're going to have a new respiratory season. We're going to have cold, flu, and COVID season coming up this year. I think you'll see face mask and gloves standard issue from about Thanksgiving on.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm a hugger, and we've got a lot of huggers in Memphis, and that's that's just going to be a radically different kind of way of social interaction. There's not going to be a lot of hugs, not a lot of handshakes. There's going to be a lot of waving, I think.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, and so we're going to have to wave goodbye to you right now, Ryan, but we do appreciate you being on with us today, and we shall maybe do this again maybe in a month or so when everybody's gathered and we have a sense of what the phases might be and how they will operate.
Anytime. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ryan.
That is Ryan Poe from the Commercial Appeal. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll put a wrap on hour number 1 of Sports Time on Sports 56 with Wolo and Stats.
Want to get your voice heard? Hit us up on the First Bank phone line or First Bank text line.
Hey everybody, this is Coach Penny Hardaway. There's a comfort in being home, and to me, comfort food and family makes Memphis the place to be, along with having the best basketball fans in America. I like pulling into Corky's and getting one of their family party packs. How can you go wrong with pork, beans, slaw, sauce, and buns for only $5.99 a person? It is so easy. I can call ahead, order online, or just pop in. Tailgating can't get any easier. Tell them Penny sent you.
Encore flavor, Corky's barbecue.
I'm Dr. George Flynn, president of Flynn Broadcasting. On behalf of everyone associated with Flynn Broadcasting, we want to wish you good health, especially in this coronavirus situation. You can be the hero. All you have to do is practice social distancing. That's right, 6 feet away from other people, and you'll be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Also, if you feel ill and have a cough or fever, get tested so you'll know if you have coronavirus or not. I'm Dr. George Flynn with Flynn Broadcasting. We'll keep you connected while you maintain your physical social distance. So keep listening to this Flynn Broadcasting station because we're in this fight with you and we're going to help you stay connected.
Now, back to Sports Time on Sports 56 with Wolo and Stats. This hour of Sports Time is brought to you by Lexus of Memphis. Here once again are Dave Woloshin and Brett Norsworthy.
There are so many pretty things to see while gazing in the grass.
Now the news just coming out here, Kansas. Coaches and athletic directors taking a 10% pay cut. As the economics of all of this start to really hit us. There was some good news today for Ryan Silverfield. He got his third 2021 commit. A guy really I've never heard of before, to be totally honest with you, Brett. He's a junior college defensive end named Myron Green. He plays or played at Coffeyville Community College. He's going to play next year at the City College of San Francisco. 6'5", 275. Was not rated by Rivals or 24/7, but Ryan's got a good way of figuring out guys that he thinks will fit into his system and excel, and he apparently likes this guy, and there's number 3 for that class.
City College of San Francisco. Isn't that OJ's junior college?
It exactly is.
I thought it was. How about this from Dennis Dodd, singular, at CBS Sports. He is reporting, he's keeping the list of here are colleges that have announced already for fall classes on campus, traditional colleges. Traditional college, Michigan, Miami, Iowa, Iowa State, Purdue, Nebraska, Missouri, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Washington State. Michigan State has said online only.
Wow. Well, so those others have said they will have on-campus classes.
Yes, fall students on campus, Michigan, Miami, Iowa, Iowa State, Purdue, Nebraska, Mizzou, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Washington State so far.
So this could be the example that Tim Brando brought up, where a major conference might say, guys, we're playing. If you don't have classes, you can't play. So Michigan State, you are not going to be part of the Big Ten football season this year. You're not going to get your television money this year, unless they're going to be really generous about that. And I've noticed over the last 25, 30 years that colleges are really not generous with one another. They're pretty greedy about the whole darn thing.
It's pretty cutthroat.
And wow. So you could have the example where the University of Michigan and the rest of the Big Ten play, and Michigan State's already made the decision that they're not going to have online regular classes, only online. They can't play. And so now you got to rejuggle and figure out what the Big Ten's going to do in terms of conference games. Maybe they go to 8 instead of 9.
And Tim indeed made that point last week, but our guest at 5 o'clock today, Bruce Marshall from the Gold Sheet, several weeks back, he made the point if it stayed in a conference, 1s or 2s, you could possibly do like that year that Tulane had to do over Katrina, when Tulane basically decamped to where, and the football team was there most of the fall.
I think it was Ruston, Louisiana.
I think so. So, but if you had 1 or 2, I think that would be easier to do. For the SEC, it looks like the Big 12 is is lockstep with the SEC on we're having football this fall. You would need at least 2, and I think probably 3, say SEC, Big 10, Big 12, to really cause a cascade effect of others maybe wanting to do it, because you can't go it alone. If you go it alone or just 1 or 2, the optics of it will be so bad you will get crushed in the end. If it looks like, by golly, we're having football no matter what because we want that TV money, it would look so bad if you're out there resembling anything close to a lone wolf.
The interesting thing that I remember Dr. Rudd telling us 2 weeks ago when he was on about hybrid classes. You remember that, where you're going to try, but to be totally safe with distancing, that you would do a combination where 1 week you're in class, the other week you're online,
Makes
so
a lot
that
of
everybody
sense.
got juggled around, and that might be a compromise to all of that.
Sure could.
Drew?
Yeah, I actually took a class or 2 like that, but instead of it's week by week, it was Tuesday we'd be in class, and then Thursday everything would be online, our assignments,
Well, that
quizzes,
might be
and
what he
stuff
meant,
like that.
too. Yeah.
So the hybrid classes were good, but it just wasn't really for me because I'm more of a in-person type of student. I had to be in a classroom, so my grades actually did reflect on those hybrid classes, but I mean, it's not as bad as going full online. You still get some classroom experience.
But if you do that because you're trying to be socially distant and keep everybody healthy, you are on campus where you could play the sport. And if things get slowly opened up where you couldn't do this by you need a month, right? You got to have this thing done by at least the 1st of August. And if you couldn't, you might delay it by a month and carry over. That I could easily see that happening.
Yeah, I could see that happening as well. Look, everybody, I got some good news for you. Our friends at All-Star Chevrolet in Olive Branch, they've heard from so many of you who really want to buy a new Chevy or need service or parts right now, and they're listening. All-Star Chevy, they have the financing as low as 0 interest for as much as 84 months, and you can be payment-free for up to 4 months, but your safety is number one. Everyone at All-Star Chevy is doing everything to provide service, parts, anything you need in the safest possible way. They can pick up and deliver your vehicle for service and even deliver parts if you want. But everything is sanitized and safe for you to visit anytime. Call for an appointment or find what you want online, and someone at All-Star will arrange a virtual test drive or a safer test behind the wheel. A Silverado, a Traverse, the all-new Blazer, maybe a new Suburban or Equinox. Remember, it's not the Pike, not South Haven, not Mount Moriah or Collierville. You got to find new roads to All-Star Chevy in Olive Branch, or go to allstarautogroup.com. Go to allstarautogroup.com today.
That's an hour in the books, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, our friend David Cobb from CBS Online. He is next. There really was a firing that we have not mentioned yet. A big name in a big conference. Who's gone? And David Cobb wrote a story about it. We'll chat with him in a minute. This is Sports Time on Sports 56 with Wolo and Stats.
Farmers Insurance knows that when you're in the car and that song comes on, yes, that's the one, you have no choice but to pull out your imaginary drumsticks and smash those cymbals and stomp on that kick pedal, which unfortunately is the accelerator pedal. And we covered it. Talk to a farmer's agent who knows a thing or two because they've seen a thing or two.
Call Chad Gatlin at 901-235-1176 or get a fast quote at memphisfarmers.com.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Underwritten by Farmers Truck Fire Insurance Exchanges and Affiliates. Products not available in every state.
You'll see the dedication in every single step. You'll see it in the smiles when smiles are hard to get. You'll see it in the little things that add up to success. The caring and passion are the things that we love best.
Wolf Chase Limb Embrace is your Mid-South provider for orthotics and prosthetics. They are an ABC-accredited facility, and their practitioners are ABC certified. At Wolf Chase Limb Embrace, their services include artificial limbs, legs and arms, braces of all kinds, and custom molded inserts. You can call them today at 901-507-7821 for their location on Highway 64 in between Germantown Parkway and Appling Road, or visit them at their new location in Jackson, Tennessee. That number is 731-660-5900, or visit them on the web at wolfchaselimbembrace.com.
Dedicated our life to yours. Wolf Chase Limb and Brace.
Right now, so many of us are turning living rooms into classrooms, dining rooms into offices, and our backyards into produce aisles. Our homes are working harder than ever for us, and Lowe's is here to help you explore the possibilities of what home can become. Even the small things that can help you keep your home running smoothly. We're here for you, in store and 24/7 at Lowes.com.
This is Eli Savoy from Sports 56 Middays. During this coronavirus pandemic, many of us are spending all day at home, and we remind you that you can stay in touch and connected through Sports 56. We're here live and local every day, keeping you informed and entertained as we all try our best to get through this healthy and safe. So turn us on your radio, computer, phone, or smart speaker and keep practicing social distancing. Stay home, stay informed, and stay entertained with Sports 56 and Sports56WHBQ.com.
We are Sports 56 WHBQ Memphis, WIVG-FM Tunica Memphis, and WPG-FLP Memphis. Flynn Broadcasting Stations. Now, more of Sports Time on Sports 56 with Wolo and Stats. This hour of Sports Time is brought to you by Homer Skelton Hyundai. Here once again are Dave Woloshin and Brad Norsworthy.
Welcome in on a gorgeous spring day. This Monday, big news today on April the 27th. The mayors are unified. There's going to be one plan to open up the city. There's going to be one thing we know for sure, 14 days of stable or declining cases before they really start to open up. There will be different phases that will be coming in, 50% restaurant when they decide to do this. Also, 50% of the retail non-essential stores will be opening up. The libraries will be open, but at 25% capacity. And I believe it's the hospitalized cases that will become the number that we will take a very, very close look at. In the meantime, we're going to chat with our friend David Cobb. We talk to him every Monday in this time slot. It's always good to talk college basketball. He does that for CBS Online. And I saw really a couple of days ago, it sort of got away from everybody, but there was a pretty big name who was fired over the weekend, and that is Danny Manning from Wake Forest. He's the first big name from a big conference to be let go in 2020. Good afternoon, David. How are you?
Hey, good afternoon, Wolo. You guys doing all right?
Yeah.
Doing well, David. Thank you.
Yeah, the Danny Manning thing was interesting because, I've kind of been keeping up with our coaching carousel tracker, and I had mostly been spending my time deep in the weeds of mid-major openings, things of that nature. It was totally unprecedented that to this point in the calendar, there had not been a single major conference change. So Wake Forest must feel pretty good. And John Curry, name that a lot of people will remember from the Tennessee coaching search of 2017, that one of Lure that I actually covered there in Knoxville. He's at Wake Forest now as the athletic director. That's where he did his undergraduate work. So he's back at a place that's like home for him. And it's the first time since the Schiano debacle that he'll have a major hire. And really he's not had a ton of major hires, even though this is his third major conference AD job. And he's in the spotlight because they're the only one out of the top 7 leagues in the country that are hiring a basketball coach this cycle.
What do you think did him in? I know it had been a rocky road. He did a pretty good job at Tulsa. He got the job because of that in this in this big conference. And it was slow going, but why did they wait so long? What do you think it was that finally pushed it over?
Well, my suspicion is that they wanted to feel really good about who they were possibly going to get. And obviously they haven't been hired yet, but the four names that are being most widely circulated are all pretty high-level mid-major coaches who in a normal coaching cycle, we would have heard their names quite a bit. I mean, it's Wes Miller at UNC Greensboro and Steve Forbes at ETSU. Those are the two that maybe some people know. And then there's a couple of more, the coach at Winthrop and another guy that's escaping me at the moment. But these are all four pretty good candidates who I think would have been received a lot of interest from other major conference jobs had there been any openings. But there weren't any other openings. I feel like Wake Forest wanted to make sure there was some legitimate interest on the part of these guys before they went and pulled the trigger on Manning. And then for a school like Wake Forest, it's a small school, so their donor base is not going to be as large as it is at most other power conference schools, and probably had to make sure they had the money. I mean, since it's a private school, we don't know what his buyout was, but I mean the rumors and the reports on what Danny Manning's buyout are pretty obscene, especially during these circumstances. So they probably needed to make sure that the major boosters and the entire administration were in line before they stepped out to become the first school to do this. And then, the fact that they are the only one probably helps them because, the four candidates or so that they seem to be looking at, they've got no competition for them. So unless those guys decide to stay put, I mean, they're not going to get. There's not another job out there that they would take over Wake Forest right now. So they're kind of the only fish in the pond, and it'll be they'll have their pick. I mean, presumably.
Do you think John Beeline's name could emerge at Wake Forest?
That's interesting. Yeah, you would think that would actually be a somewhat logical fit for him if he's truly looking to get back into the college game, which a lot of people suspect that he is. At 67, he probably doesn't want to have to wait another year before he gets in. So maybe, but then there were reports this morning, and I forget who put it out there. It was 24/7. Had a report that he's not a serious candidate. So I don't know if that's on Beeline's end or on Wake Forest end or maybe mutual. But I thought on the front end that he would be somebody who might get some play there because again his age and just this sort of idea that he was willing to walk away at Cleveland because he thought he could get in on the front end of the college basketball coaching cycle. But as of now, I mean the reports, as logical as it may seem for him to be a candidate, the reports that are out there so far that maybe he won't be.
Well, there's certainly because of this pandemic, everything changed. The whole dynamic of what like Shaka Smart might have been fired, but he didn't, and now he ends up with Greg Brown. So that really changes the whole trajectory for at least a year of what might have happened with Shaka Smart. Of all those guys, I'm sitting here thinking because I kind of believe I think this guy's the real deal, and that's Steve Forbes. We've seen him. We know he can recruit. We know he can X's and O. I mean, he's really, I think, a money-in-the-bank kind of candidate. And if you're him, maybe people are starting to figure this out, but you're sitting in Johnson City, right? What are you making? A couple $100,000 instead of the, $4 million that you might make if you're at a really big place? Would you take this job? Because it's a hard job. You don't have the budget. You don't have the tradition that
look who you got to play.
5 of those schools in your league already have. Would you wait for a better job or would you go for it?
If I'm Forbes, I go for it because he's been passed over for a while. I mean, he's of the candidates that are aside from Beeline, of the candidates that are being mentioned, he's been on the rise seemingly for a while, but has been passed over, and so you don't want to wait and never have that opportunity. And Wake Forest is a tough job, but I mean there was a span there from the early '90s through the mid 2000s where I think they made 12 out of 15 NCAA tournaments, and where they were able to get guys like Chris Paul. And even recently, I mean, Danny Manning had John Collins there, who went on to be a first-round pick and is a really a young player in the rise on the NBA with the Atlanta Hawks. So I don't think that it's an impossible place to win. And then you look right now, there's a window, I think, to capitalize in the ACC. I mean, it was pretty weak this year. I mean, Virginia rallied at the end, but with North Carolina being down, it was Duke, Florida State, Virginia really there. Then Syracuse is not nearly as good or as powerful as it used to be. NC State is pretty mediocre. So kind of like the middle class of the ACC, I don't think is really all that strong. And I mean, I feel like Forbes would be a guy who'd be willing to get things going on the transfer mill and be able to turn that thing pretty quickly. And probably worth noting, and I pointed this out on Twitter, Forbes was an assistant under Bruce Pearl at Tennessee when John Curry was like the senior deputy athletic director there, a decade or so ago. And Curry worked really closely with basketball because he was a lead fundraiser and sort of spearheaded a big arena renovation there. So they've got a relationship that goes back a long way. So do some of the other candidates with Curry. But, I like what Steve Forbes could probably do there. He's done nothing but win at ETSU. And you're right when you bring up, the difference in salary. I mean, even under these economic circumstances, at a place like Wake Forest, it would still be, a monumental pay raise without a doubt.
David, you bring up some of the little bit of reluctance I have of really thinking that Landers Nolley may be the answer for all Tiger basketball ills, and there aren't many of them. The Tigers roster, I think, will be really good next year with or without him. It'll be, I think, exceptional with him. Here's my reluctance, though. Did he have that year at Virginia Tech because of that weakened ACC?
That's a great point. I mean, he was the best player on a roster that wasn't very good. I mean, that Virginia Tech team really wasn't very good this past year. And if you look at Nolley's numbers, the scoring was impressive. He was over 15 points a game, I think. But at the same time, his shooting percentages were not fantastic. And that may partially be because he was kind of pigeonholed into being more of a stretch four and was sometimes the biggest guy on the floor, was somewhat playing out of position. So he can be productive. I think he's going to be really good defensively because of how versatile he is. But the offensive efficiency would be my biggest concern for Landers Nolley. But I think at a place like Memphis, where I would say almost without a doubt that there's more talent, at least right now, than there is at Virginia Tech, he'll be able to. He won't. I don't think be looked to or relied upon to take 15 shots a game like he was at Virginia Tech. And I think if he takes 8 or 9 shots a game and 2 or 3 3-pointers a game, that's probably going to be more his wheelhouse. And I'm assuming that's been communicated to him. I mean, I think it would be kind of irresponsible if they pitched him on a vision of coming in trying to be the leading scorer at Memphis, because I'm not convinced that DJ Jeffries and Lester Quinones with another year under their belts won't be better players, and that Landers Nolley might not be the third best player, on the team next season. So, Boogie Ellis too could be in the mix there. So
definitely could be.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be the Memphis leading scorer next year.
Well, the numbers for him too, the shooting percentages. I don't know if they got skewed. I don't know if he got hurt. I don't know if they got tired. I don't know if he got triple teamed because, again, that roster wasn't so good. But he shot 22% the last 8 games, 37% for the year. But when you shoot the last 8 games, basically, your last 30% of the season, when you shoot 22%, those numbers are going to go down. So, I think everybody was surprised that the NCAA decided to table till January the discussion on granting immediate eligibility to transfers. That's what they thought about a year ago. Then they were going to definitely do it, and now it's tabled. That doesn't mean, by the way, that Landers Nolley couldn't still make a case and become eligible by petitioning, but we've seen what that did with Stokes last year. But why do you think they decided not to go ahead with making this transfer deal this year?
I don't know. This seems like the time to strike in terms of passing substantial legislation, because with everything that's going on with this epidemic, with how many players have already put their name in to transfer, I just think that there was a lot of momentum. That this could have been a really big year for the NCAA, both in terms of the immediate eligibility and then also with name, image, and likeness. But if they're going to slow play it, what's going to happen is, I mean, essentially, what I think is happening is that a lot of coaches don't love the idea of immediate eligibility because it's essentially going to be more work for them. I mean, that's what it comes down to, and I wonder if some of the more influential coaches in the game who have a lot of power and a lot of connections kind of ended up getting their way here and, getting this thing kind of tabled for the time being. But there's going to be all sorts of waivers that people apply for because of the current circumstances. And the NCAA has been so lenient in recent years in granting waivers for circumstances that don't even really seem to meet the criteria. I wouldn't rule out the possibility that a lot of waivers still get granted because of just the widespread uncertainty that we're all in right now. So I don't know. I don't really know exactly why. I suspect that some of the more powerful coaches in the game were able to sort of get them to push the pause button on that.
David, let's go back to John Currie and that story you covered and his demise at Tennessee over Greg Schiano. Fair, unfair, life in the big city. It's the High Wire Act. We walk now. They walk now in sports. The money they make, it can happen. What was that?
I've got a T-shirt closet that says "I survived the 2017 coaching search at Tennessee," and it was unbelievable. It's one of those things I look back on now and I'm like, wow. Did that really happen? Did John Currie really fly out to California without the permission of the rest of the university's administrators and have this off the record meeting with Mike Leach on a bike path, along the Pacific Ocean? And it's just, some of the stuff is just unbelievable. When you look back on it, there were just a lot of competing factions at Tennessee, because you had a lot of people who still didn't really think that John Currie should have been named the athletic director. And so, you had the people who were in Fulmer's camp, you had the people who were in David Blackburn's camp, and then so you take a guy in John Currie that the fan base isn't really sold on yet, and he tries to give him a coach that they really weren't sold on, and the whole thing just absolutely blew up. And I think the thing is, I genuinely believe that John Currie is a quality athletic director, and I know that's not a popular opinion in this state, but I think he's going to do a lot of good stuff at Wake Forest. I mean, he's done a lot in terms of facilities, both when he was at Tennessee the first time, and then when he was at Kansas State for nearly a decade. Some of the facilities projects that he led there were just completely transformative. And now I think he's in a great spot at Wake Forest. And I think that in 10 years, he's going to be known probably more for what he's done at Wake than for what happened in that coaching search.
Since you were there at that time, and I've never asked you this question, and I've thought about it a couple of times, because I know how Johnny Majors felt about Philip Fulmer and what happened in his case. You mentioned different factions that didn't think Currie deserved that job. How much pushing did Philip Fulmer have in that deal, which eventually he was the beneficiary of?
Yeah, so he was already technically in a role with the university because Joe DiPietro, who was the university assistant president at the time, had appointed Fulmer to a role as a special advisor to the president at the university after he got passed over for the AD gig. And it was a big moment for the university. I mean, they made a big deal out of it. They had a press conference. They gave us one-on-ones with DiPietro and Fulmer, and they really tried to portray it as though the olive branch was extended. Fulmer was willingly taking on this advisory role to the president, and that everything was all well, and that Fulmer was moving on for the good of the university. I don't have any firsthand knowledge of any efforts that Philip Fulmer himself made to undermine John Currie during the coaching search, but there were people who were influential people who were loyal to Philip Fulmer who did push for Fulmer to take an active role in the search once it sort of got off the rails a little bit. And that's a product of the disharmony from the decision in the first place. And so how much Fulmer was directly responsible for pushing for that, I don't know. I think a lot of people jump to a conclusion there that hasn't necessarily been proven or borne out by any actual reporting or intel. But I do think that people who are close to him pushed for him to have an increased role. And it was it was kind of natural because he was already in that advisory role.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't like they plucked him from, some retirement community down in Florida. He was already in the area. He had already begun collecting a paycheck from the university again. And so it wasn't this just completely out of nowhere thing where they brought Fulmer back.
And Dave and I both well know, and it goes back to in Memphis, UT's in town to play the Tigers in '92. Great game at the Liberty Bowl. That really should have been the first time. Well, it was a couple even before that, but that should have been the win over Tennessee that day. Instead, it was a narrow loss for the Tigers against Tennessee. But that Friday night, there was a lot going on in Memphis and a lot going on in the UT world, and Philip Fulmer knows how to play the parlor games.
Yeah, he did. Talk about like the ability to fundraise. That's going to be more important than ever coming out of this crisis. Is going to be re-engaging the boosters and the donors and getting that key source of revenue back up and probably even higher than it was before. That these universities are going to continue to fund athletics in the way that they have. And I think Phil Fulmer is going to be really good at that because he's got a ring on his finger that he can slap down on the table and impress a lot of people.
He's UT through and through.
Yeah, he's not the best at like press conferences, just not necessarily because he's sort of still an old ball coach in that way. But when he's around people that he trusts, people are quick to trust him. And, I just think that he'll actually probably be a really good for UT, and now in that unique way, as we come out of all this, I think he'll be able to sort of get them stable financially through re-engaging the boosters.
I think you're on the money with that, and I think that is true at the Power Five, or it is true at a situation like the University of Memphis, where a good percentage of revenue stream comes from donations and gifts in kind. And I don't know if those that have been so readily generous to donate so much because of this pandemic and their businesses failing, whether or not they will be able to continue to give in the manner with which they have. It'll also be very interesting, and this is not a Power Five issue, but it's an issue at other schools, Group of Five schools, where so much of the money would come from student fees. And schools are going to be hard-pressed because they're losing numbers, and they may not be able to give as much money as they have in the past to support their athletic department. So we could see a lot of changing times. Before I let you go, I think it's important that we bring up the case of Tyler Harris. When he decided he was going to transfer, he obviously didn't name where he was going to go. And we were guessing a lot of different places. I sort of really thought he could go be a big star at the OVC or a conference like that. He goes to the Big 12, and he goes to Iowa State, a team that really struggled, but a team that really went after him a year before, or 2 years, I guess I should say, when he was a senior in high school. What's your reaction and what you think his future will be at Iowa State?
I think he'll play a pretty big role for Iowa State. I mean, they're losing Tyrese Halliburton to the draft, and I know they've got a couple of seniors who were starters as well, who are graduating. So I don't know what that recruiting class looks like, but I think it's a spot where he can thrive. I think he'll play a bigger role there probably than he would have played in Memphis. And he's playing for a good coach up there. I mean, Steve Prohm was at Murray State.
Right.
I mean, Murray State just produces good coaches at a pretty impressive clip. So they've been really up and down. I mean, he's won 20 games a couple of times, and they've been well below 500 a couple of times. But Tyler Harris will have 2 years to play there, and we'll see him in an NCAA tournament if I had to guess. And I would imagine he'll be, if not starting, first or second guy off the bench, chucking threes. I mean, you're right. They were a school that wanted him, and so it makes a lot of sense. Prohm's been there since Harris was probably a sophomore in high school now. So they're well established. They know obviously what they're getting in him. He knows what he's getting there. I think that's actually a really good landing spot for him.
And I hope he gets immediate eligibility, just like I hope Landers Nolly gets it.
Me too.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense why they would accelerate on that.
No kidding,
rather
David.
than
Just
accelerate that.
show some heart, NCAA. I mean, prove to us you have one.
Well, I have no rhyme or reason, so it would just have to be hard because there's no precedent that you could ever look at and say, well, this is definitively going to work this way or this is definitively going to work that way, because that just doesn't work with them.
Yeah, but we're in unprecedented time, so it's going to start breaking down precedents, I think. But hey, we'll see. I'm not totally down on the idea that there couldn't still be some sort of resolution there. But gotta keep kind of holding the NCAA seat to the fire a little bit.
Yep. He's David Cobb from CBS Online. Stay healthy, my friend, and hunker down, and we will chat with you again next Monday.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
That is David Cobb, and always enjoy chatting with him. Our title sponsor for this hour of the program is Genesis of Olive Branch and Homer Skelton Hyundai. Same place, right there at Craft Road and Highway 78. Right now, Homer, first ones to do this. 0% financing for 84 months. You pay no interest for 84 months. 120 days to make your first payment. So you don't even have to pay for your car for the first 3 months. What a deal. And these cars, this technology that they have in Hyundai and in Genesis cars, it's the best. I mean, they've been written up about how safe these cars are, how they perform, and you get a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited powertrain warranty on every new car. I know my G70, I love it so much, it performs so well, but it helps me. It's got lane keeping assist. It's got collision avoidance assist. It's got attention warning signs inside the car. It's got blind spot collision warning. It basically drives you around. Low beam and high beam assist, anything you can think of to make your car more productive and safer, they've got it in these Genesis cars. Go see my friend Chris True. You'll love it because they are the standard for the way car business should be done. Get on Lamar. It's Highway 78 at State Line Road. Turn left at Craft Road, the very first exit. You're there. You're there at Homer Skelton Hyundai and Genesis of Olive Branch. When we come back, a very special guest, Joe Klein, former Hog, former pro basketball player, former Chicago Bull. He's next on Sports Time on Sports 56 with Wolo and Stats.
Start your day with Sports 56 Mornings with Peter Edmiston and CJ Hertz. Right here on Sports 56, 96.1 and 87.7 FM.
Here at Rocket Mortgage and the Rock family of companies, every one of our team members knows a hero.
My Uncle Paul, who works long hours at the grocery store to make sure that people can put food on the table.
We really want to thank my wife's cousin Marie, who works so hard as a nurse saving others.
Thank you for being a hero in our community, Des Marie.
To those who leave their homes to keep us safe in ours, we thank you. From the front lines to behind the scenes, we see you. You're essential every day, and today, you're heroes.
We're giving families everywhere a little more hope for a healthier tomorrow.
We're sending all our love, gratitude, and hope your way.
Here's to all of you. We couldn't be more grateful.
Thank you so much for everything that you're doing.
And yeah, you guys are awesome.
And we miss you, Mama.
I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you'd like to thank America's frontline and essential workers with us, visit everyoneknowsahero.com. Quicken Loans, LLC, NMLS number 3030, licensed in 50 states. Each legal entity that identifies themselves as part of the Rock family of companies are separate legal entities with their own governance and management structures.
Hi, I'm Troy Fiveash, owner of Fiveash Roofing. Can anyone explain to me why anyone would care how I measure your roof? We have all heard about measuring your roof from outer space. Well, to be honest, there are aerial pictures that are taken every 4 years that can be used to measure a building, but it's not from outer space. Besides, no one, and I mean no one, can tell you what's wrong with your roof or even if you need one by using pictures that might be 4 years old. If you would rather do business with a family-owned and operated business with a lifelong tie to Memphis that refuses to mislead or use gimmicks, please give me a call. Best products, best warranties, and the best customer service we know how to provide. Fiveash Roofing, proud partner of the Memphis Tigers and the official roofer of the Memphis Tigers home team. Fiveash Roofing, fair, honest, and ethical. 367-0050 or memphisroofer.com. 367-0050 or memphisroofer.com.
Fiveash Roofing, it's what we do. We're here for you.
Sports 56 would like to recognize local businesses that are out there providing for the community. Let's support local business with your business. Gossett Motor Cars, Excellent Window Tint, My Favorite Place Mexican Restaurant, Crab Kings, Mid-South Power Distributors, All-Star Chevrolet, Wolf Chase Honda Nissan, Mid-South Lemon Brace, Principal Toyota, Rise Biscuits and Donuts, Homer Skelton Dodge Chrysler Jeep, Counts Marine, Wright Realty. Sports 56 appreciates the support of local businesses always, but especially during this time. Thank you.
Hi, this is Rob Brown. Join Pete Cordelli and me Saturdays 8 to 9 a.m. for Sidelines here on Sports 56 WHBQ, 87.7 FM and 96.1. We'll cover the Memphis Tigers, the SEC, and your favorite team. Give us a call. That's Sidelines, Saturday mornings 8 to 9 a.m. Sidelines is presented by Duncan Williams Asset Management. So get up and give us a call.
Now, more of Sports Time on Sports 56 with Wolo and Stats. This hour of Sports Time is brought to you by Homer Skelton Hyundai. Here once again are Dave Woloshin and Brad Norsworthy.
Halfway through our Monday on this gorgeous spring day. And there is some news. We're about to talk with Big Joe Klein. Can't wait to chat with him about The Last Dance and a whole bunch of other good stuff. See where he is at the moment. But this just coming across from Woj at ESPN. The NBA has pushed back its original plan to allow players to re-enter team facilities for voluntary workouts. They are now delaying it by a week until at least May 8th. That's a little bit better and feasible for Memphis because at this point, Brett, they couldn't do anything until at least May 5th. There's no guarantee that would be the case. But apparently they must have run into a whole bunch of that. And so now they are delaying it by at least until May 8th.
Yeah, Dave, I think they got a lot of pushback and a lot of interaction from their players. The NBA's at the front line. They're the leader of listening to their players, and it's not just going through the motions. They really do have a great relationship with the Players Association and with their players. And at this point, as we talked about earlier, let's be safe, not sorry. We've been watching The Last Dance, and you see him he very prominently featured in The Last Dance. He was on that championship-winning team of the Chicago Bulls, 15-year NBA career for our next guest, gold medal winner in 1984 as a teammate with Michael Jordan. So from there in Los Angeles to The Last Dance, Joe Klein got to see the full breadth and depth of the Michael Jordan career, and he joins us now. You see Joe on SEC college basketball during the basketball season, and Joe, just a real honor to have you back with us. And Dave told us last week that he filmed a golf show with you. Boy, I wish I could see that video, Joe.
God.
Joe, do you remember how you ate up Chenal that day?
Yeah, probably had a smooth double bogey.
No,
with a 5 foot with 5 foot gimme doubles.
we actually made you look very good. We did a lot of takes.
A lot of editing there, buddy.
Editing key, Joe.
I will say this: Joe had the biggest hands and the biggest grips. The only guy that's in his league was Hank McDowell in terms of grips that looked like a baseball bat.
Yeah, I love that game, but it everybody's like, well, when you retire, you can play golf all the time. I'm like, why would I want to play golf all the time?
No, Joe. I've said they ought to make people in prison play golf, play by the strict USGA rules, wear all the right clothes, play in the heat, and it would make them want to be better. But we're glad to have you, Joe, and we've loved watching The Last Dance and into the mind and the psyche of Michael Jordan. And out of last night, I said it earlier today, breaking news, Michael Jordan and Isaiah Thomas just plain detest each other.
Yeah, I mean, what came to me from last night's show was the interviews today. That's kind of, the aftermath kind of listening to Isaiah kind of talk about it. And then, the part I liked is when, Michael was sitting there and go, I'll watch your if you want me to hear what he has to say, I'll listen to it if that'll make you happy. But he's still a blank, 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 blank.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
I mean, that's Michael. I mean, Michael, they're what they don't get, Isaiah and them can sit there all they want, talk about, well, the Celtics walked off the floor, and that's the way the NBA was back then, and he is very true. I mean, it's, and nobody, he said it today, I was listening to Get Up, and he was on there with Mike Greenberg, and he was talking about, the scars and the battle wounds that he got, just as much as the Pistons gave, Isaiah got as much, and with the scars and the hits that he took. And so, but the problem is that Michael Jordan, for 3 years prior to that, when he lost, handshake, shook everybody's hand at the end of the game. And then when he finally beats you and you walk off, you don't care what the Celtics did. You don't
That's
care
right.
what the Lakers did.
I know what
you
I
don't
did.
care.
That's right.
Yeah, you disrespected me, and and he doesn't let that stuff go. As you saw last night, 30 years later, it's like, I don't care what y'all show me. I shook his hand when they beat my butt, and he wouldn't shake mine when I beat him. So he's a blank. And
Isaiah
that's
said
that's the competitiveness that you see. That's what drove Michael Jordan. I mean, that's his competitive. That says a lot about his competitiveness right there.
Isaiah Thomas said he thought that tainted his legacy, that he didn't get on the dream team because of that. Are you buying? Do you have sympathy for Isaiah Thomas?
Oh, absolutely. Isaiah should have been on the dream team. That's right. I mean, his coach was on there.
Yeah.
And the only reason his coach was successful is because Isaiah was his point guard. If Isaiah was a Chuck Daly's point guard, they wouldn't have gone to 3 straight finals and had the team that they had. I mean, they would have done nothing, and it'd been like the Celtics without Bird. It'd been like the Bulls without. They would have been just another team. And so, I mean, he should have been on the dream team. There's no doubt about it.
And he was very disappointed. He would have been on the 1980 Summer Olympics team, but the United States boycotted Moscow, so he didn't get to go to that Olympics. And then he won it all for IU in '81, and then turned pro. And Joe, I've said Steph Curry may be there now, but Isaiah Thomas, Nate Archibald, that Allen Iverson, that's the great smaller players of all time.
I agree, and it's the whole, you can make an argument for any of those guys, but I mean, he's right there. I mean, he's arguably the greatest 6-foot and under player that ever played in the NBA.
The other side of that coin, while he was sorry about the whole thing, wished he had played it differently, Lambeer was not.
He stayed in role.
He said, I don't care what anybody thinks. They were whiners. The heck with them. And he was, I got to say this, Bill Lambeer, in my mind, Joe, and you would know because you had to play him. He's the dirtiest player I've ever seen at the NBA level. What was that like going against him, and what are your feelings about him?
He was, I mean, I don't know Bill. I never had any, I was never around him. But, he was a hell of a player. I mean, you can't take that away from him at all. But, can you say prick on radio?
we got the message. He gladly was that way. And Joe, I go way back with my contempt of him.
Good.
What he did to Jimmy Counts in the consolation game in '78 in St. Louis.
Yeah. No, I mean, he just, that's who he was. And he didn't care, and he still doesn't care. And I kind of respect him for that. He is who he is, and he's not going to change. And good for him. But I know when I played against him, every time I got a chance to pop him, I
took it.
I tried to pop him. I tried to. I tried to get him a good one anytime I could.
The things that I saw out of this, just off the top of my head, was one, the brilliance of Phil Jackson, how he got people to accept Dennis Rodman, how he got Michael to accept that he had to give the ball up in the triangle offense, how he made everybody sort of believe his Zen philosophy. The guy was truly amazing.
No, he was. I mean, I think the greatest thing he did was, and even Michael said it last night, I did, he liked Doug Collins. Doug Collins drew up plays that got me the ball. And when Phil got there, he was, like, we're gonna make it to where it's very hard to hone in on, we're not going to come down and go 4 up. And everybody on the sidelines yelling, okay, he's going to the post, and it's going to be a cross pick and a down, and everybody's screaming what's coming. The triangle was very much, I wouldn't say motion offense, but there was no, this is where it was all reads. You're reading things, you're cutting and reading things, and you have certain responsibilities, and you had to really know all 5 positions on the floor because you never knew where you were going to be, and so that made it harder to scout. Now, everybody knew when Michael got the ball, he was option 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
But they didn't know where. I mean, they didn't know where it was. That was the beauty of it. They didn't know if it was going to be on the left side at the elbow, the right elbow at the top of the key, in the post, on the baseline. Is he cutting back door? I mean, and that, everybody knew he was, like I said, the top 4 options, but they couldn't sit there and go, this is what's going to happen when the ball goes here. And if they call this, there was nobody, as you would see a lot back in those days, stand up and call this player this play. Well, everybody was scouted. So, they would call a play, and everybody on the, every coach on the bench would be, here it comes, CrossFit Joe, get up, and so you're gearing your whole defense. And if you're going to double, let's say Patrick Ewing on the cross pick on the block, the guy up top's getting ready to come double team when the pass is made. And so, they were really good at that particular play, whereas the triangle had none of that. You still knew it was going to Michael, and you still knew, again, he was the guy and the man, but you knew and how it was coming.
Joe, you go way back with Michael Jordan, you with the championships with the Chicago Bulls, but the youth basketball scene, very different, the summertime scene, very different than now coming through. Was the first time you ever met Michael Jordan? You said, hi, I'm Joe Klein from Slater, Missouri, and the University of Arkansas. Was the first time you ever met him at Olympic trials in Bloomington?
Yep. Hey, Studs, you'll love this. In 1978 or 79, my high school coach comes and grabs me out of class and goes, "Hey, there's an AAU guy here that wants to talk to you." And back then, AAU was track and field.
Right.
I mean, I never heard of it, AAU. And I'm like, I looked at him and I'm like,
so the shot
I'm looking at my coach. I'm like, what does a track coach want to do with me? And he's like, not a track coach, you nut. He's a basketball. It's AAU basketball. And I was like, I'd never heard of it. I didn't know what it was. And so it's totally different now. I mean, I met Michael at the trials, and then when I didn't really meet him and know him until we started dwindling it down and cutting the team down, and I kept hanging on by the skin of my teeth, and they just kept narrowing it down. And so now your group became more and more intimate, and then you got to know him much, much better.
What was he like then compared to the leader of the Bulls, 10 years later, 15 years later?
He was his competitiveness has always been there. I mean, he practiced hard and played hard and got after guys and wanted to beat you, but he wasn't he didn't have that leadership, kind of like when he first got into the league. I mean, he'd play hard and practice hard, and he would score and get a lot of points, but, he didn't have that bring everybody along with him kind of, he could carry a team and bring a team along, but his leadership stuff as he went on in the NBA got so much better. I mean, as all players do, and everybody in every phase of their life, as you get older and experience things, you become a better leader and able to handle things and motivate people and motivate teammates. And so, he was, very smart in that, he didn't just think it all about him. He knew his legacy and his greatness was tied to other players being good. And
winning.
Phil Jackson really brought that out more than anybody.
Did he, at the Olympics, both at the trials and in Los Angeles, did Coach Knight ride him? Did he coach him tough? Was he receptive to that?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, and that's the other thing that I think, the players, Coach Knight was an equal opportunity,
yeah.
Crawl up in you guy. I mean, he would, that's what I liked about Coach Knight. I mean, he'd let you have it, but, Michael did the same thing. He'd let him have it. But, and that's what I liked about Michael is, Michael could take it. He didn't really, I think he liked being coached hard. I think he liked the challenge of, making Coach Knight smile and be happy. I really think he really relished that. And I think Coach Knight, it really grew a great respect for him, even more so. I mean, everybody knew he was going to be great, but, I think after going through all that, I think it elevated Coach Knight's opinion of him tenfold.
Last thing for Joe Klein, former Chicago Bull, big part of The Last Dance on ESPN. Next two episodes, which will be 5 and 6, will be next Sunday night at 8 and 9. And that was Dennis Rodman, who was clearly very gifted in so many different ways. But, man, he seemed to be so needy. How tough was that for the team to sort of have their own little Rodman rules?
Well, I mean, when I was there, I mean, he had his little quirks and neediness, but, I mean, Phil and Michael and Scotty, I mean, they did a great job of kind of keeping him in line. Now, and they would give and take on, the going to Vegas or stuff like that, but, they really, watched him and kept an eye on him, and he needed it, and he responded to that. I mean, he didn't fight it and didn't rebel against it. I mean, he accepted it, but I think, a lot of that has to do with, I mean, Dennis was a hard worker, and I think if Michael would have been a guy that was kind of not show up for practice and then be a great player in the games and not really want to practice and not really want to work hard and not really want to do all that stuff, I think Dennis would have gone nuts and lost his mind. But he, when he came in there and saw every day that Michael's already been in there lifting weights, Michael's already been in there getting shooting, Scotty's been in there lifting weights, Scotty's been in there, and he knew that he was the third, cog in that wheel. I mean, I think that really kind of said, all right, I can't let these guys down. So, he had his stuff, but, and he was a little bit needy, but I mean, I don't really remember him ever being a big distraction at all.
It was, in my opinion, the greatest team of all time. I loved watching them. There's no doubt about it. Joe Klein, thank you. Hope you're doing well. Hope we got some basketball to talk about at some point down this road.
Well, I hope so too. And I appreciate you guys calling me. And Stats, stay safe, brother. You be good. Be nice to Dave, and be nice to everybody over there in Memphis.
I will,
all
Joe
right?
Klein. Love you and yours.
See that, Stats? He knows.
He knows.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, man.
Joe Klein. How about that?
Love Joe Klein. Love Joe Klein.
He's
I've
great.
told you, somewhere I've got a picture of his gold medal after he returned back to Fayetteville that August. We were at Maxine's Tap Room, and a lot of people got their picture taken with it on, and Joe had it, and Alvin Robertson had one as well from that team, and I mean, just as good a guy then as ever, and same guy now. And with his business partners, he has a Corky's out in West Little Rock, Dave.
I did know that. I did know that. I hope it's.
Oh,
it
is, and Joe is one great one.
Speaking of Q, we have a great guy in Walker Taylor, and we've got a big Q question for you. So somebody's going to win a 6-pack of Germantown or Collierville Commissary. If you can answer this one, it could be tough. It might be easy. I have no idea the mood that Brett Norsworthy is in, but Stats, what's the question?
Oh, I like to give hints earlier, and I did with this one for the big Q of the day at the Germantown or Collierville Commissary, and that Walker's working so hard, as so many of our restaurateurs are. So I teased it earlier. Now, we're going to have to get some more coupons. So if you win today, it'll be Thursday or Friday before we get it mailed out to you. But I mentioned it earlier. This was how many straight years for the SEC to have the most players drafted, and it will never be broken. This was how many straight years, double digits, in the teens for the SEC to have the most players drafted in the NFL draft. 360-8255 at the First Bank text line. Should we be nice and let the phone line and text line work? Phone line 360-8255, text line 67129.
All right. Well, sure, we can do it that way. Let's take the quick timeout. We'll figure it out. The question is simple. For a 6-pack of Collierville or Germantown Commissary, tell us how many years in a row, a record that Stats says will never be broken, and I'm not arguing with him. How many years in a row has the SEC had the most players drafted in the NFL draft? Back with Thomas. You'll be first in just a minute. This is Sports Time on Sports 56 with Wolo and Stats.
We are Sports 56 WHBQ. Listen to us daily on AM 560, 96.1 FM, or 87.7 FM.
At Jason's Deli, you can stuff yourself full of great deli food that's healthy, fresh, and best of all, it's not expensive. Jason's Deli is all about choice. Whether you're looking for a gluten-free menu, vegetarian sandwiches, healthy kids' meals, or if you'd like to invent your sandwich via the build-your-own selections, Jason's Deli has you covered. And they only use fresh, wholesome ingredients. Choose from the club and specialty sandwiches, paninis, wraps, soups, salads, pastas, and much more. I love the cleanliness in the restaurant, the hospitality, and of course the cost. They have a huge salad bar and great soups, including Southwest chicken chili, fire roasted tortilla, organic vegetable, tomato basil, and many, many more. And if you're planning an event, their catering department is fantastic and can handle any size party. Go check out Jason's Deli's 4 locations. On Ridgeway in the Park Place Center, that's my favorite, on Germantown Parkway in Cordova, at Poplar and Highland, and on Goodman Road in Olive Branch.
Bartlett Small Engine has been serving quality power equipment since 1970. They have a full line of power equipment, parts, and services for most makes and models. Bartlett Small Engines has the best brands in the power tool industry, and they're all American made. Bartlett Small Engine is your can-do store. 6780 Summer Avenue. Call 901-386-9779.
Bartlett Small Engine has free pickup and delivery both at your home and curbside for lawnmowers, blowers, edgers, and any small engine. Call 901-386-9779.
Sports 56 would like to recognize local businesses that are out there still feeding and providing for the community via curbside pickup. Let's support local business with your business. These local businesses include Shelby Forest General Store, Let It Fly, Moon Dance Grill, Great Wines, Germantown Wines and Liquors, Corks Wines and Liquors. Sports 56 appreciates the support of local businesses always, but especially during this time. Thank you.
Now, more of Sports Time on Sports 56 with Wolo and Stats. This hour of Sports Time is brought to you by Homer Skelton Hyundai. Here once again are Dave Woloshin and Brad Norsworthy.
Welcome back in, man. We've had some action on our big Q from the Germantown and Collierville commissary that the first guy that texted in, that'll be a winner, and we're going to get the first caller that gets it right because we got full phone lines on that. So we're very pleased. We thank all of you for participating and, of course, listening today. And we do want to remind everybody that our good friend Walker Taylor still has things cooking at both locations, Germantown Commissary, Collierville Commissary. That, of course, is at Poplar and Houston Levy Road. That's the one you want to drive through. There's curbside service at the one in Germantown. You can still get your ribs. You can still get your pulled shoulder or your chicken or your tamales or whatever it is you want, the banana pudding, the icebox lemon pie. It's all there. Just drive through. And the best way is to call and give your credit card. Less exchange that way. They're very, very aware about distancing and sanitation. It's all still happening at the commissary. So, let's just let, we got a bunch of people, but the first one that ends in 46, Drew, that'll be the first one. That texter will be the winner. And let's go to the phones. We'll give away a six-pack to somebody who's got the correct number. How many years in a row, Thomas, has the SEC had more players drafted than anybody else in the NFL? Go ahead.
Dave, that would be 14 years.
Thomas, that would be a winner.
Never be broken, Thomas.
Never be broken. Roll Tide.
Well,
very good.
They didn't win it this year with the most in the SEC. That was LSU. But
LSU,
close.
They should have won it. They were the best team this year, but Alabama had 10 if you count Jalen.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I think Oklahoma's going to claim him, though.
You know, and you go back and you watch that LSU-Bama game and you watch the post-game reaction from the LSU players and from Ed Orgeron and their fans. They knew they won the de facto national championship that day.
Yeah, they did. They knew they had that one. And I did, too. They better win it. Once you beat us, you better go win it all.
Yeah, there you go. Thomas, don't forget, we're not going to have these in our possession until Thursday or so.
We
will mail it out to you. We're going to put you on hold. Drew will get all the info, and we will send it out to you. Same thing for the text winner. So happy that we could give some of that away because that cue is so darn good.
You know, Dave, in the really dumber things I've done in my life, Joe Klein begged me, come to the L.A. early August Summer Olympics in Los Angeles. You get here, you can stay with me at the Olympic Village. I'll get you tickets to basketball. I'll get you tickets to, whatever I can kind of run across, closing ceremony even. And for some unknown idiotic reason, I didn't do it.
Wow. I know you are hard-headed on occasion, but I can't believe you. I covered that Olympics for REC. They sent me there.
Wow, you went, and I regret I didn't go 84 to L.A. I didn't go 96 to Atlanta. I had a shot at both, and one of my bigger sports regrets that I had a pretty easy trip to go on. 94 World Cup it staged in Dallas. That was a big miss.
Oh yeah, I didn't get to that one, but I got to the 84 Olympics in L.A. That was fun. Watch Carl Lewis get a bunch of gold medals.
Did you go to events at the Coliseum?
I did. I went to track
Nice.
at the Coliseum. I went to boxing. I went to gymnastics. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, I can't believe I'd been in Washington all summer and just didn't want to spend any more money, getting ready to go back to Fayetteville. Boy, it was dumb.
I can't believe you didn't do that.
No kidding.
Really?
Well, I was being a tightwad, Dave, and you know how I can be.
He was going to give you tickets and a place
I know,
to
but
stay.
I had to fly out there, and it was like $145.
Oh, my gosh.
No kidding.
Oh,
How dumb.
my gosh. That's 2 hours in the books when we come back. Our friend Bruce Marshall, we didn't get a chance to chat with him on Friday. He'll join us from the Gold Sheet. And then at 5:30, we talked with Ryan Poe about the mayor's press conferences today. He will join us with a replay at 5:30. We'll be busy on our final hour of Sports Time on Sports 56 with Wolo and Stats.
Do you know one of the best things you can do for your employees or family's health? Provide Arctic Clear bottled water. Arctic Clear bottled water is your locally owned and operated bottled water provider. Arctic Clear is 100% natural spring water with free delivery and setup, dependable service, and no long-term contracts. What an easy choice. Call Jeff Manus today, 901-382-2363, or visit arctic-clear.com. Arctic Clear bottled water. Call now, 382-2363. That's 382-2363.
Sports 56 would like to recognize local businesses that are out there still feeding and providing for the community via curbside pickup. Let's support local business with your business. These local businesses include East Memphis Ace Hardware, The Butcher Shop, El Toro Loco on Kirby, Bartlett Small Engines, Spirit Shop Liquor Store, Five Ash Roofing, Tactical Guns and Ammo, and Wolf Chase Lemon Brace. Sports 56 appreciates the support of local businesses always, but especially during this time. Thank you.
The landscape is so beautiful at Town Village Audubon Park. Nestled in the heart of East Memphis, located corner of Park and Cherry, is a beautiful residential neighborhood. Looking for a great place to retire, but you still have a very active lifestyle? Then visit Town Village. Only requirements that you're 55 plus. Prices per month starting at $24.50. The Gourmet Chef welcomes you to visit our restaurant and bistro. Package includes 3 complimentary meals per day, maid service, free local transportation, monthly coffee club, theme dinner parties, lots of fun. Visit us and call Daniel or Bo at Town Village Audubon Park at 901-374-7342. There's no place like home. Town Village Audubon Park.
We are Sports 56 WHBQ Memphis, WIVG-FM Tunica Memphis, and WPG-FLP Memphis, Flynn Broadcasting Stations. Welcome back to Sports Time on Sports 56 with Wolo and Stats. This hour of Sports Time is brought to you by DeSoto Auto Sales. Here once again are Dave Woloshin and Brett Norsworthy.
Final hour on this Monday, and it starts with our friend from the Gold Sheet, Bruce Marshall. We missed him badly on Friday, and we're glad everything's okay with him. We'll talk to him again this Friday back in the regular spot, but we're going to talk to him just in a little bit after I tell you about the title sponsor of this hour, and that's DeSoto Auto Sales down on Goodman Road, 5704 Goodman Road to be exact. Check them out online at DeSotoAutosales.com, 662-890-7184. All the cars test driven at DeSoto Auto Sales, all checked out head to toe, bumper to bumper, unlimited inventory, every make, every model. And if it's not on the lot, DeSoto Auto Sales, they'll go out and find the car that you want. No shortcuts taken at DeSoto Auto Sales. You walk in, you're treated like family by kind, courteous employees, laid-back atmosphere, no high-pressure sales, down-home environment at DeSoto Auto Sales, but they care about your time, and they know we're living in a world today that time really matters. You walk in the door at DeSoto Auto Sales, within 45 minutes you've met with your sales rep, test drive your car, get credit approved, paperwork completed, and you're out of there in 45 minutes in time to do it over your lunch hour or immediately after work. Check out the referrals at DeSotoAutosales.com. Very proud to serve DeSoto County and the surrounding area at 5704 Goodman Road. Come on down to DeSoto County to DeSoto Auto Sales down in North Mississippi.
This has already been a busy day for sure. We know as far as the coronavirus world goes, we had 187 new cases in the last 24 hours, but part of that is because a lot more people are being tested, and the good news is 0 deaths in that time period, so that is a very favorable trend. Today, the mayors, both Mayor Harris and Mayor Strickland, met with the press. They agreed that there would be one plan to reopen. It will be a little bit slower than the rest of the state. There is going to be a period of 14 days of cases that either have to be stable or on the descent for the city and the county to agree to reopening. There are going to be some phases in all of this, including restaurants being opened at 50%, non-essential retail stores opening up at 50%, the library at about 25%. So we are making small strides, hopefully in a very, very smart way. I think for the most part, both Mayor Lee Harris and Mayor Jim Strickland have really done a good job of leading our community. In the meantime, this is so weird. On a Monday, we get to chat with our golden man from Las Vegas, from the Gold Sheet, Bruce Marshall. How are you? You feeling okay?
Oh, yeah. I have to go up every 6 months to for an eye exam up at Stanford because they're one of the only places out west that can do this for me. It was scheduled I do it every October on Halloween so I can see the grandsons up there, and then I do another one in April. They didn't cancel this, and I thought they were, so I had to hustle up last week and get my plane reservation. That was interesting, flying on Friday. I haven't flown in a couple months. And to see these airports, Vegas and San Jose were like ghost towns. But, yeah, I just went up there. Everything's fine. But I just go up there every 6 months for a checkup.
Out of curiosity, your airplane, how many people on it? Was it full?
No, there were 16 on the way up to San Jose and about 33 coming back. But they had canceled. There's usually, 5 or 6 flights San Jose to Vegas on Southwest. And then they canceled everyone except one. There were only 3 or 4 flights even that were ready to go at the terminal Friday night in San Jose. It was very, very deserted in there. So there weren't many people. But on the flight back, there were about, 33 or so. But that was condensing everybody who was going to be flying back that day into one flight.
Bruce, on your flight or in interaction in the airports, how many people with protective masks?
Yeah, there's a bunch. It's funny. On the plane, on the way up, there was a gal who had a cardboard cutout of a football player. It must have been from some draft thing she was going to do from Vegas, or I couldn't even tell who the player was because just looking at it from behind. And she actually got mad at somebody getting too close, not to her, but to her cardboard cutout, who was taking up his own seat. The cutout was by the the aisle. And
Okay.
this poor bloke was the aisle behind on the other side, and she said, "You're too close." And he said, "To you or to your cutout?" And it was pretty funny, but she was dead serious, So, I mean, listen, I'm getting the stuff I'm hearing at the stores and all that. There's a lot of people, getting a little nervous, edgy right now, and that was one of them on the plane. But other than that, everybody kept to themselves on the plane.
Well, while we're on that sort of subject, let me ask you, your mayor came out with some very strong statements about wanting to open up really quick in a lot of different ways. And I know with CNN, they took great offense to that. What kind of reaction has there been to your mayor's statements?
Well, I think she should have just thought it a little bit more and should have nuanced it a little bit more. But I mean, she's frustrated because she wants the city to get going again. But unfortunately, it's going to be a good while. And I think sports at least will get going. They can play games without people in the stands if they have to. Vegas and casinos and event-driven places that get crowds in. They got some problems with this, and she's justifiably concerned that this whole thing is going to collapse. And there's one other thing she should have mentioned here, and I'm always hoping that some of even the president will mention some of this stuff. The related costs, the physical toll of the financial meltdown and people losing their jobs, and the physical tolls there. What's happening to hospitals and things. I mean, the most perverse thing about this entire episode here is that hospitals are forced to lay people off now because they've had to cut everything back that isn't corona oriented. There was a lot of ways she could have gone with it and made some points. She kind of stumbled over herself, but I got where she was coming from, and everybody's feeling the same here. They'd like stuff, but they know that you got to be careful about it, but you got to do it at some point, or the consequences down the road are going to be a heck of a lot worse. And I just wish some people on TV and the political leaders to start addressing that stuff because it's real.
You have some in college sports and college football. I read a list that Dennis Dodd is keeping a list of. They're saying we're going to school in the fall and preparing for a football season. You have Michigan saying that they are. You have Michigan State saying online only. You have conferences. I just see no way the full 12 members of the Pac-12 can go. What about this, Bruce? What if Utah can go and for 1 year they play as a member of the Big 12.
Well, I guess anything's possible, Brett, and that maybe. It's just I don't know. There's got to be some timeline here where they've got to make it. We're not there yet. We're still a couple of months away, but I would think some point in the summer they're going to have to say yay or nay to going in the fall and how it's going to look. You're right. You might have a point there. There could be some juggling with that. The logistics with all this stuff and how the TV things work out, I don't know, but that would play a part in it. I am not holding my breath for college administrators to make a bold step here. Many of them have been in academia their whole lives. They don't have a lot of public, private enterprise experience, and I don't trust most of those to make the sorts of decisions that they're going to have to make coming up here. However, they're going to get it from a few different sides. The networks are going to. There's money on the table here too, and how this is all going to play out on the sports end, at least. In football, the big money driver. Boy, those schools would hate to miss out on that, but there's other things they got to weigh here. And to trust some of the college administrators to make a bold step, I'm not sure. Then you've got the governors in some of these states you got to think about too. We think that, we're only April 27 here, and there's still several months before football will start, but time moves pretty quick. Before we know it, we're going to be into June, and they're going to have to start making some decisions. And I'm kind of curious. It could go a variety of different ways, Brett. And just kind of waiting, like you and Dave and everybody else, see how they do it.
The government thing is the trickier thing because they've got to be responsible, and they're going to make laws about mass gatherings and things of that nature. But even academia understands money, and they're going to understand their institution is going to be under a lot of strain if it can't bring in the revenue that it gets from football. As I've mentioned a million times during this pandemic, the average Power 5 team brings in 85% of their revenue stream from that one sport, college football. If you've got Michigan saying we've got online classes and knowing the way most of the time these colleges operate, they're not going to go, oh, wait, Michigan State doesn't want to play? Oh, well, we're not going to play because they don't want to play. No, they're going to go, okay, you're not playing, you're not getting your share, but the rest of the Big Ten schools are going to play. I think that's where we may end up. It's odd in Michigan because it's the same state, so the governor may end up being the decider there anyway.
Yeah, it's odd, Dave. I'm not sure. If the schools are going to be able to go off on their own here. You've got the conferences to worry about and then the political ramifications. Locally, statewide, and then it could even get national, but a lot of it is going to be statewide. So I think most of the schools in any state are going to have to make a decision what to do based upon one blanket decision for each state. Remember, though, the schools, there's money, TV revenue from football, but if they don't go to class and there's nobody on campus, at least, there's no dormitories, they can't charge for that. They're looking at a big dip in the revenues they're going to get anyway. And so there's a lot of different questions to be answered. What would be the really interesting thing here is if there is political pressure not to do it, not to even play or go to school, and there is financial pressure to somehow do it and play and all the TV money and all that, that's going to put some of the colleges in a tough spot. But I think most of them are just going to have to defer whatever their states do. And like you guys mentioned, there's different states doing different things here. We're just going to have to wait and see.
And Bruce, I'm with you on a lack of real faith in a lot of these college administrators. Not all, but a lot of them are scared to death with anybody with a bullhorn and a tambourine shouting outside their office space. But one thing they are aware of. If you don't have college football in the fall and you don't have people on campus in the fall, the money's going to go away for everything. Yep. And you're already hearing, Bruce, people that paid kind of full freight and had to go online this semester. There are a lot of people that don't want to pay. For instance, out-of-state tuition people that want the experience of wherever you fill in the school, they don't want to pay that out-of-state tuition freight for it to be online and basically videos and GabFest sessions. They want that experience of being in that town, living there, and paying that full freight for it, or they're not going to do it. They can go to, state university nearby their hometown for a lot less.
Oh, yeah, Brett, you're right. As an institution, the whole college and university setup here is going to be under some real pressure in the next couple of years, no matter what, even if football comes back or not, just because people are seeing they can get by without going to some of these big schools, paying the big freight. There's a lot of different angles to this, but that's definitely one of them. And they're going to have to make some hard decisions here. One other interesting thing I've heard mentioned is that the colleges may, could they play college football in the spring? I guess they could do anything, I suppose, but you're talking at that point, boy, the logistics of that, especially then on the TV side, because they're already planning on the sports side. There's a lot of inventory that's already, they're planning anyway in the fall and winter and the winter months and spring. There's other things that are already in there. Now, can you dump, I don't think you can just dump a full college football schedule January to March on top of this stuff. The TV networks, boy, there's a lot of questions to be. I don't think it would be that easy to do, as some people think. It's possible. Like I said, anything's possible right now. But, boy, there's a lot of ramifications no matter which direction they go. If they have to be, even if they stay playing in the fall, but if they have to deviate from the fall, there's to play later, there's a lot of hurdles they have to clear in that scenario as well.
I do think if they have the opportunity, if they delay it a month, 6 weeks, whatever it may be, and they could play the full football schedule because of the revenue stream that you get from that, you're still going to miss gate maybe, depending on what they allow you to have in stadium. But I think basketball would end up getting the short straw here. I'm not saying they wouldn't get coverage, and they still have the streaming ESPN Plus and ESPN3 availabilities, but it would end up losing a little of its steam. It'll take a backseat to football.
Yeah, but a lot of the regional networks too, and a lot of the Fox networks at all. You get into NBA and NHL, and they've got schedules already. That they're going to be having to accommodate there. So you are going to have a lot more inventory. Something's going to have to suffer. Maybe it is college hoops. I don't know, but I think you touched upon the most important point in all of this, and anybody coming back. And this would, I think, is more than likely, I think, if they're going to play in the fall, they're going to have to do something like this. It's either limited or no attendance. And from the way things are looking right now, unless hot weather seems to eliminate all this and it's all gone by July, that's wishful thinking, I know. But any league, whether it's NBA, NHL, MLB, maybe NFL, maybe even college football, they're going to have to decide if they're going to play. Do we want to play with little or few or no fans in the stands? If they agree, if that is a palatable decision, and they all think, okay, we can do that, then you could see sports come back a lot sooner. But even MLB, which looked like it wasn't going to, endorse that idea, has come out in the last few weeks at least and said, yeah, we'd probably be able to do that if we started in Arizona or whatever. But that's going to be the big thing. If they think it's okay to play without fans in the stands, then we'll see the TV networks can have their sports. And we saw last weekend, there were no fans at Las Vegas for the draft, but it got the best TV ratings in history.
Yeah.
Now, odd
It rolled
circumstances
on.
we know, but people will still watch on TV.
Bruce, beside the league itself, give us a few of the teams that you thought won the draft. It was a very offensive draft. A lot of wide receivers. The quarterbacks always get the attention. It was an offensive lineman heavy year. And with that, the Carolina Panthers, 7 picks, 7 defensive players. Who'd you think a couple of the teams that won the draft?
Yeah, boy, it's always tough. I do these shows here in Vegas, and we have one of the sportsbook directors in town. I always likes to second guess when we had come up with our projected picks, and I like to say it's like arguing with your wife when you second guess draft picks. I mean, the teams themselves are wrong. It takes a long time to determine. But we can still pick a few that we like more than others. Yeah, Carolina, all 7. I think you got two defensive line starters, the first 2. I really like what Arizona did with a limited number of picks. Isaiah Simmons falling to 8. I mark right now, if they do play this fall, this guy's going to be your NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. You can scheme around. If Chase Young is going to be that dominant, there's things you can do to neutralize a defensive end a little bit. You cannot neutralize a guy who plays the field the way Simmons does. And I think him falling to 8 for Arizona was the biggest gift of the draft. And then they got an offensive lineman, Josh Jones, a tackle, in the 3rd round, a guy who was figuring some in the first round. I think he was a 3rd round pick. So, I mean, in a draft where you didn't have a lot of picks, you picked up some guys who I think are going to help them right away. And I also like Eno Benjamin late, the running back there. Baltimore, adding Dobbins, we'll see how good he's going to be.
Always.
A powerful running game. You got another great runner there. I like a lot what Baltimore did. But, a lot of these guys, we'll see down the road. But there's two others I want to mention here. And these are free agent pickups. Or one other one, Lynn Bowden, Kentucky. I love that pick. He got skewered by some people with the Raiders. I think that was actually a great pick by the Raiders. I love Bowden. Two free agent quarterbacks. Bryce Perkins, Virginia, should have been drafted. You can't tell me some of those guys got picked were close to Perkins. The Rams signed him immediately as a free agent. And Anthony Gordon, Washington State, signed immediately with the Seahawks. The only other quarterback they have on the roster right now is Russell Wilson. I think Gordon makes that team. And I wouldn't be surprised if Perkins makes the Rams. Not sure they'll be stars in the league, but I think those guys were handy additions post-draft by both of those teams.
The New Orleans Saints are on the verge of signing a one-year deal with Jameis Winston. They've got Hill already there sort of as a backup to Drew Brees. I think Drew's going to at least play one more year. Oh, I know he's going to play one more year. I wouldn't be shocked if he had a good year. He'd try for a second. Do you think Jameis Winston ends up, it's a one-year deal, you think he ends up being a Saint for long?
No, because I don't think they're looking at him as a long-term. I mean, we'd heard for a while that they thought Taysom Hill might be more of a long-term answer, right. But apparently they're not comfortable yet with him being the top backup there, and they can use him for some other things. I think Jameis is just a one-year deal. And the best-case scenario for him would be the same thing that happened to Teddy Bridgewater last year, that he somehow had to get in there, performed well, and then he sets himself up to get a bigger deal somewhere else like Bridgewater did. That would be Jameis's best scenario. Who knows, getting away from Tampa Bay, and if he got the chance, maybe he would flourish. We'll see.
Bruce, I meant to text you this weekend. The historian that you are, Green Bay gets a lot of acclaim, and they nailed it. They went Favre, Rodgers for the long period of time. San Francisco had Montana and Young for the long stretch. Indianapolis mostly got it right, except for the injury to Andrew Luck, going Peyton to Andrew Luck. Can you think of anybody that's done it with three different guys over a long stretch?
Being a team that had three different quarterbacks that they kept going to like that?
Yeah, like over a 25-year stretch.
That's a good question there. Off the top of my head, I'm sure if I thought about it long enough, some would come in there. Some of the Dallas guys, Meredith, Morton / Staubach, Danny White.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
That one, that one might. There's some others that might come by. It's hard to get three in a row.
Some can't get one in a row.
It's hard to get one in a row.
Yeah.
As it relates to Green Bay this year, though, I am not sold on Jordan Love at all.
Me either.
And I think
Me
he's
neither.
one of these. They fell in love with this supposed Mahomes. It might be just the rare bird here. He's just so good. And Love dropped off a lot last year. They had a coaching change there and some different things at Utah State, but he wasn't as good a quarterback as Bryce Perkins last year. And here they're making Love because he showed so well in Indy, which, by the way, is oftentimes a great it fools a lot of people how these guys look at the combine in Indy. I'd take a guy who plays well when the games are playing. And Love disappointed last year. So we'll see. Maybe he just was in a bad spot, but I think I'm not convinced he's going to be the man in Green Bay eventually to take over for Rodgers. We'll see.
Well, the other thing is, how does that affect Aaron Rodgers? We know he can be a surly guy to begin with. Do you think this looking over the shoulder thing affects him?
It might. He is a little. Now he had a better. He had a better rapport with LaFleur last year, but I think, he realizes now. I mean, he's going to be starting his 16th year in the league, and they got to start looking down the road. So I'm not surprised Green Bay did that. Although I don't know that maybe Love, we'll see if Love should be the guy. But 16th year, yeah, you should start looking. He shouldn't be surprised at that. Having said that, I mean, Big Ben, who came out the year, but he came in the year before Rodgers. The Steelers did not draft another quarterback there, which suggests they still maybe have faith in Mason Rudolph. You got Big Ben, 17th year. He's 38 years old. He just had 3 tendons attached to his throwing elbow. That looks a little risky to me after he missed all last season. I do think Cam Newton could very well end up there as the backup in Pittsburgh, but that almost surprised me as much that Pittsburgh didn't pick a quarterback as Green Bay picking Love in the first round.
And Bruce, how about this note from the draft? The SEC, they kept it going 14 straight years. I don't think that will ever be broken by another league to keep it going. I mean, and I don't think this time next year they can have the total number of players drafted, but it was a lot of players at every position, including the great punter from A&M.
Yes, I think Braden's going to end up being a great help, I guess, with the Jets. So, I think he can flip the field himself. And I guess Ole Miss is the only team that didn't have a draftee after last year. They had all those guys drafted. So, that'll rev up again soon for the Rebs. I think the most interesting SEC stat, I want to say it was into the third round where they finally had back-to-back picks where there wasn't one of them being an SEC guy. So they dominated like they have never done before in this year. And it was, another big haul for the SEC for sure.
63 guys. It was incredible. Last question for our friend Bruce Marshall from the Gold Sheet. Bruce, is anybody taking lines on whether we will have baseball this year or the resumption of basketball or the NHL or whether or not we'll have an NFL season? Is there any kind of line on that?
I suppose there is somewhere. I should look overseas if there are. I don't know that there are any of the online books here in the States. At least I haven't seen it. There certainly could be. I'm thinking. What discourages me a bit is when you hear some chatter about this stuff and then nothing happens. This MLB stuff a few weeks ago in the NBA, NHL looked like they were getting ready. May 15th. No, that's not going to happen. So maybe now it's into June. But I think it's. I think it's likely they will get something going in summer. And baseball seems like it really wants to. It may not be till July 4th with baseball. That would be a good time to reopen if they can't get it done sooner. But I have a feeling, yes, you're going to see all these back, though I haven't seen any prices on it.
Okay. Bruce Marshall, how do we get more of you?
Check us out online, goldsheet.com. Not a lot to write about. I'll do a draft review here shortly. You can see my draft picks, what I had last week. It's sort of a team-by-team, what they've done in off-season thus far into the draft. Hey, I got 10 picks right in the first round. That was my best ever.
That's great. That was fantastic.
That was my best ever showing in the first round. And I'll have a review, and I'll put some more Best of Gold Sheet up there pretty soon at goldsheet.com.
Thank you, Bruce. Have a
great week. Thank you, Bruce.
Okay.
We're glad you're well. Thank you.
Yeah, we are. We're really glad. That is our friend Bruce Marshall from Las Vegas. He's brought you in part by the Spirit Shop. Yeah, my spirits always go up when I talk with Bruce Marshall because I love his wit and his wisdom and everything else. And I love going to talk to Eddie Connor when I hear his wit and his wisdom on spirits. He's as good on spirits as Marshall is on sports and history. He really is. And that shop is so unique. They get so much product in that little space. It is amazing. Of course, you don't go in anymore. It's curbside with the Spirit Shop, just like every place else. Best advice I can give to you, call him. Ask about the hot product if you want. If you want something premium, he's got it. If you want something middle of the road, he's got it. If you want bargains, he's got it. He's got accessories. He's got beer. He's got everything you need to raise your spirits. You all know that. My suggestion is to call in advance with your credit card, less exchange. And again, like all of our sponsors, very aware about distancing and about sanitation. The Spirit Shop still going strong with curbside service at Poplar and St. Nick. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll give you a little bit of a replay of our conversation earlier in the day with Ryan Poe from the Commercial Appeal on the mayor's press conferences today. That's next on Sports Time on Sports 56 with Wolo and Stats.
The word is out about R&R on Sports, where you've heard interviews from
Ken Griffith Jr., Dr. J, Hank Aaron, and many, many more.
Right here, R&R on Sports. Saturday mornings, 9 a.m., Sports 56, 96.1, and 87.7.
Don't miss it.
You check things all the time, like your email every 10 seconds, or your ex's Instagram. But what about checking something as important as your credit? Well, Discover makes it quick, easy, and best of all, free. Discover is now offering FICO credit scores, the score used by 90% of top lenders, for free, even if you're not a customer. Checking your score won't hurt your credit, and you can check each month for changes, always for free. The Discover Credit Scorecard, free for everyone. Learn more at discover.com/credit scorecard. Limitations apply.
Farmers Insurance knows that there's a not-so-subtle difference between the sound of a car hitting your rear bumper and the sound of a clown car hitting your rear bumper.
Whoa, 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 whoa! Sorry about that.
We call that a three-ring fender bender, and we covered it. Talk to a farmer's agent.
They know a thing or two because they've seen a thing or two.
Call Chad Gatlin at 901-235-1176 or get a fast quote at memphisfarmers.com.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Underwritten by Farmers Truck Fire Insurance Exchanges and Affiliates. Products not available in every state.
I'm here with Robert Cox, kitchen manager of the Rendezvous Restaurant. Tell us about those great ribs at the Rendezvous.
Rendezvous stands alone in a unique barbecue style, only found in Memphis, Tennessee. We don't smoke our ribs, we char broil them. The guys cooking our ribs have been doing it for 30 years. Mr. Charlie Virgos taught the guys the technique himself, and still to this day, they teach newcomers that come in the door. After our ribs come out the pit, we pre-cut every order, so you easily can tear them apart. We baste our ribs on a plate and sprinkle our season all over them.
So Robert, are ribs what everyone comes to the Rendezvous for?
The beef brisket is now our second best seller behind the ribs. We also have lamb riblets, half chicken, pork shoulder, chopped chicken, cheese and sausage plate. Nachos are fantastic. We also carry a Greek salad. The list goes on.
Robert, where can we find out more about all of these great options?
Our restaurant menu is online at hogsfly.com, and recently we just added our catering menu online.
Mr. Charlie Virgos' Rendezvous Restaurant, a family-owned restaurant in downtown Memphis, in the alley since 1948.
Sports 56 would like to recognize local businesses that are out there providing for the community. Let's support local business with your business. Memphis Hearing Aid, providing better hearing. Campbell Investments, buying distressed properties including foreclosures and tax sales. Germantown Village Wines and Liquors, doing curbside. In South Bank, drive through till 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Corks Wines and Liquors. Sports 56 appreciates the support of local businesses always, but especially during this time. Thank you.
Welcome back to Sports Time on Sports 56 with Wolo and Stats. This hour of Sports Time is brought to you by DeSoto Auto Sales. Here once again are Dave Woloshin and Brett Norsworthy.
Welcome back in as we get set for our final half hour of the program. On this 46th day, no live sports, but plenty with which to ponder. Today was an interesting day where the area's two biggest leaders, the mayor of Memphis, Jim Strickland, the mayor of Shelby County, Lee Harris, both had a press conference, and they said there will be one plan to reopen this area, and they are all in on this together. And we had a chance to speak with Ryan Poe, who writes for the Commercial Appeal about news matters like this, and this was the conversation a couple of hours ago.
We're getting close. I think we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but the mayor's all warned we got a lot more and certainly a little more work in this time period to go.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, first of all. And, yeah, like you said, today was a big day. We finally got the reopening plan from the mayors. So the gist of it is that we have to have 14 days where we don't see any new COVID-19 cases. So after that 14-day period, then we're going to move into phase one, which is reopening some retail and restaurants half capacity and allowing churches to meet with 25% capacity. So and then it's another 14 days. It kind of goes on from there. So in a 14-day phases. That's kind of where we are now.
Let me ask clarification on that, Ryan. I might have been reading you. Wasn't it hospitalized cases? Because we are getting more cases now because we have got more testing. But wasn't it going to be either stable or declining hospitalized cases to be the benchmark for when we knew we were coming out of this? It had to be 14 straight days?
I believe, and I need to go back and check it, but I believe it's just cases.
Just cases.
And I think the reason for that is, they're worried about the spread. Not so much the severity of the spread as the actual spread. So they're going to take into account things like, increases in testing. Over the weekend we saw a surge in cases, and that was just because we had so much testing kind of at the end of last week and over Saturday. So that contributes to surges, but yeah, I think 14 days of declining or flat case counts is what they're looking for.
Right, I said earlier to Dave, there's a couple of victories, a couple of things we've learned from this, and I think one is if we didn't overload the hospital system in the United States with this one, we got to think if we have another one or a national nightmare, if this one didn't collapse it, then almost nothing will. It bent a lot of places, and a lot of places were real, and the healthcare workers sure have been put out and have been so valiant. But I think we can take that as a win out of this.
Yeah, I definitely think so. But I've been thinking a lot about your point there, which is that things are not going to go back to how they were before. I think this is going to radically change the medical system. I think it's going to change how we are preparing for pandemics in the future. Because with a global world, we've got trade happening every day between, hundreds of countries. It's just the rate at which pandemics can spread is incredible. Unless we are going to be changing foreign policy dramatically, we're going to have to really ramp up our preparation for these kind of events.
This first phase of opening up, does this come after that 14-day period? So really we don't have a set date. He'll let us know on May 5th or right around there whether or not he's going to open this?
Exactly. It could come 14 days from now, probably at the earliest, but they have not set a firm date. So it could be earlier, it could be later. We just really don't know yet. They've said it's going to be made based on the data that they're seeing. So up to this point, we have seen a slowing rate of cases coming in. So it potentially could turn around and they could make that declaration relatively soon. But again, it's not going to be a lightning fast reopening. This is going to be a very slow, long process drawn out over at least the course of, a month and a half, and probably more than that.
It will take a long time economically, but even just social interaction-wise. Ryan, this story, I couldn't begin to put the end date on it.
Yeah. No, it's going to, the economic consequences alone, I think, are going to last for well over a year. I would estimate, and I've seen estimates putting it in mid-2020 or 2022. Sorry. So it's just the economics are going to be long lasting, and of course, our day-to-day lives are going to be greatly impacted. We've got so many people filing for unemployment. In addition to just regular, family kind of interactions and, the ways this has changed all of our lives. It's going to be a very strange next couple of years, probably.
I would say the community in Memphis, our metro area, though, has really done a pretty good job of following the rules for the most part. We have not seen some of the protests that you've seen other places. And I know we've got as much economic hardship as any other place, but I would say, Ryan, you tell me if I'm wrong, we've been a pretty darn well-behaved community.
Well, I think there have been some mobile cell phone data that the New York Times had that showed that Shelby County was one of the ones in the nation who were, traveling the most locally. I think that's probably because of our sprawl. We're as sprawled, in our city as New York City. Our city footprint is as big. I think that's probably largely the reason for that. But yeah, I tend to agree with you. We had a protest here maybe a week or two ago where, people came out to protest the shutdown, and I think 7 people showed up, and compared to hundreds in Nashville. I think that's a good sign that we are where we should be as far as just being level-headed about this whole
and almost a cruel twist of irony, because we all know that often Beale Street Music Fest has been Memphis in mud. We've had to battle a lot of rain and a lot of conditions through the years. I've been a part of that mud. I don't know when I'll be a part of it again, Ryan. I think those days are over. And I look at the forecast for this weekend that would have been Beale Street Music Fest. 77 a high, no rain. 81 a high, no rain. 83 high, no rain. I mean, come on, give us a break, somebody.
So that's the way it always happens, Just when you need it, the rain doesn't show up, and when you don't need it, it shows up in waves.
Do you think since it has been rescheduled for the fall, what is it, October?
Yeah.
Do you really believe that we'll be open enough to have a gathering that large on Tom Lee Park?
Yeah, I don't think it'll look anything like what we've seen in the past if we do it. And I also don't think that people are going to show up in the droves that they used to. Me personally, we've had to make, we've had a conversation in my family, where I don't think we're going to be going to any large crowded events for probably the rest of the year. And I think that most people are probably going to be looking at things on a case-by-case basis. But, those kind of events where it's shoulder to shoulder, I don't think those are going to happen.
Yeah, when you get conditioned to not be around it, and for the public safety front, it's just going to hard to immediately go back. Ryan, I've thought about New Year's Eve in New York City. I just can't believe this year we'll see Ryan Seacrest from Times Square and 1 million people jammed in there like sardines.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, if they do have anything, it'll probably be mostly virtual. And probably, what little crowd they do have there is going to be spaced out with a capacity cap. So, and the same for, any events like that in Memphis, it's going to look very different from the past.
In the press conferences today with the mayors, did anybody at all ask anything about sporting events coming back and how they would do that?
That is a very good question. I am not aware that anyone asked the question, but that is a very important question. They did not mention sporting events as being part of Phase 1. So they would be coming in Phase 2 or Phase 3, I assume.
Because if you think about that, and obviously they're beholden to the organized leagues, but we all are thinking, well, FedEx Forum and the Grizzlies, they could be playing the Lakers right now, first round of the playoffs. The bottom line is, though, the Memphis Redbirds would be smack dab in the first couple of weeks of their season, and the 901 FC would have probably played about 7-8 games by now, and so those would be on the docket now. Those are outside. Those you could limit, I guess, with the stadium if you did it one every third, maybe third of capacity, or like the library, 25% of capacity. It's outside. Right. That might be feasible, but I haven't heard anybody address that yet, and partly that could be because the leagues themselves, the Pacific Coast League and the USL Championship League, would have to go, okay, we're back.
Yeah. And another factor, too, is, like with the FedEx Forum, seating wouldn't be itself a problem. You could space people out, at good intervals. But on getting out of there, what do you do in those crowded corridors? And, it'd just be kind of a nightmare to do. I think they can probably do it, and they probably will find a way to do that slowly, but I don't see that happening, in the near future.
Ryan, I readily admit that I saw this story. I didn't see it coming, but in February you're hearing about it way over there, and it's getting closer and closer, and it moves from if you're looking at the old-fashioned newspaper, it went from kind of page 17C to page 4 to page 3 to 6-inch banner headlines the night of the Rudy Gobert incident. That's kind of when it really hit me. When did it hit you? When did you see this story and think, well, we got one on our hands here?
I think it was about that time. I think it may have been even the day before that, the Tuesday before that happened. I think that happened on a Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And so I'd prepared to write a column, that just saying, it's time to think about shutdown, or shutting some things down. And I had a conversation with some folks at the paper, and we, and there was a lot of skepticism. Is it really that time? and then the next day came, and then we were all, on the same, on board with the idea that, yes, this is a serious thing that needs to be considered now as far as the shutdown.
One of the other areas I'm wondering about, and I don't know if this was addressed today either, and that's airports, and which are getting a bunch of money from the government, and flights, and airlines. Maybe some won't make it. I really have no idea. But we had Congressman Steve Cohen on last week, and he was talking about how he took a nonstop from Memphis to Washington, D.C. last week so we could vote on the PPP bill. And there were 7 people on that direct flight, Memphis to Washington, D.C. What was said, if anything, about the airport, aviation, and when that might come back?
I think that's more of a federal, decision. I don't think the city and local mayors are going to be getting involved in that much. I do know, speaking of Cohen, he wants to make wearing a face mask, mandatory now for airplane or for flights. So that's going to be something that's going to have to be looked at. I don't think that's going to come out of local level, though.
Right. I think wearing a face mask on flights now might be standard issue, and I don't see anything wrong with it. I do, again, to the credit, I think we have learned, all right, maybe we shouldn't have all the handshaking we've had through all the years, and come cold and flu season, we're going to have a new respiratory season. We're going to have cold, flu, and COVID season coming up this year. I think you'll see face mask and gloves standard issue from about Thanksgiving on.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm a hugger, and we've got a lot of huggers in Memphis, and that's that's just going to be a radically different kind of way of social interaction. There's not going to be a lot of hugs, not a lot of handshakes. There's going to be a lot of waving, I think.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, and so we're going to have to wave goodbye to you right now, Ryan, but we do appreciate you being on with us today, and we shall maybe do this again maybe in a month or so when everybody's gathered and we have a sense of what the phases might be and how they will operate.
Anytime. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ryan.
That is Ryan Poe from the Commercial Appeal.
Take Sports 56 with you on your phone or tablet. Download our official Sports 56 app today.
Ugh, those nachos were rough on my stomach.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea,
try Pepto-Bismol liquid caps for fast relief and ultra coating.
Nausea, heartburn, indigestion,
Pepto-Bismol liquid caps. Use as directed.
Between panic buying and the large number of newly unemployed, food shortages are at an all-time high. Today, people who never dreamt they would need help feeding themselves or their families are showing up for food assistance. This Thursday, listen to this station and others nationwide as we raise funds for Feeding America. With your help, we'll restock food banks. Feeding America, a life-saving source of hope and help for millions. Listen this Thursday and please help if you can.
There's a new commissary in town in Collierville. Germantown Commissary is doubling. Yeah, they're still going to have the old Germantown Commissary by the tracks, but now there's a huge new Germantown Commissary in Collierville at Poplar and Houston Levee Road. It's huge, too. There's a drive-through. There's plenty of parking. No telephone pole to get in your way. A cool patio. It's right by the track, so the tradition continues. And this is a tradition that's been around forever. That commissary is famous for hickory-smoked, slow-cooked Memphis-style barbecue. They've got a private party room at the new one in Collierville. Self-catering still continues. Party packs for $5.95. Basically, the great ribs, the great pulled shoulder, the great deviled eggs. Everything is there in Collierville and Germantown now. So there is now a Germantown and Collierville style of barbecue. It's called Germantown Commissary.
I'm Dr. George Flynn, president of Flynn Broadcasting. On behalf of everyone associated with Flynn Broadcasting, we want to wish you good health, especially in this coronavirus situation. You can be the hero. All you have to do is practice social distancing. That's right, 6 feet away from other people and you'll be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Also, if you feel ill and have a cough or fever, get tested so you'll know if you have coronavirus or not. I'm Dr. George Flynn with Flynn Broadcasting. We'll keep you connected while you maintain your physical social distance. So keep listening to this Flynn Broadcasting station, because we're in this fight with you, and we're going to help you stay connected.
Welcome back to Sports Time on Sports 56 with Wolo and Stats. This hour of Sports Time is brought to you by DeSoto Auto Sales. Here once again are Dave Wolosian and Brad Norsworthy.
Come on, Muhammad, we hit fame. Too easy with the deal, we get insane.
Welcome back in. Final portion of this gorgeous Monday. Wolo and Stats with you. We want to thank Ryan Poe for that insightful interview, and we'll of course keep that 3:30 slot, and we play it at 5:30 as long as the pandemic is a big part of our lives. That's all part of the Sports Time with Wolo and Stats philosophy. Now, this portion of the show brought to you by Homer Skelton Hyundai and Genesis of Olive Branch. You know they are both in Olive Branch. They are in the same building. They are right there at Highway 78 and Craft Road, first exit in Mississippi. And to me, they are the standard of the way car business should be done right now. Both Homer and Genesis, 0% financing for 84 months. You never pay any interest on your note for 84 months, and you've got 3 months, 120 days, to make the first payment on select models. Can't beat that, and that includes maybe my G90. That can include the Santa Fe. That can include the G90, the G80, the midsize of those Genesis luxury cars. And they are built so beautifully. All that technology that's in there, all the safety that's in there, but built so tough, they all get a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited powertrain warranty. All you got to do is get on Lamar and get there. Go see Chris True, and you'll understand why I say it is the standard for the way car business should be done. Homer Skelton Hyundai and Genesis of Olive Branch. It is time for Crunch Time.
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy! This is Geraldo. It is Crunch Time. You are looking live. In your life have you seen anything like that?
Take questions again for the student athletes at this time, please.
What's happening, big dog? How you doing?
Is this thing working? It's obviously crunch time.
Hammer, nail, coffin. This baby is over.
Woo!
Woo! Time for Taco Bell Crunch Time. Taco Bell, home of the crispy tortilla chips, topped with a double portion of either seasoned beef or shredded chicken, plus refried beans, nacho cheese sauce, reduced fat sour cream, guacamole, and a 3-cheese blend. Nachos Bel Grande, heaping portion of chips, topped with ground beef, tomatoes, beans, nacho cheese sauce, and a dollop of sour cream. Taco Bell, home to great food you get on your way home real fast, and they bring you crunch time every day. Dave, I was glad to learn today that little engine that could, that ragamuffin, hard scramble, tough to make it business in this big, cruel world, the Los Angeles Lakers got $4.6 million from our government. If you didn't get it, if they hadn't got that $4.6 million for the Lake Show, I don't know how they could have ever made it. But they are going to return it. How in the world did they qualify and some haven't?
Well, that was actually the story I could have done without the fact that they got it.
Yeah.
So they did. They got $4.6 million from the government in the small business category, the PPP, and they were shamed when people found out, and maybe they were a little worried about some government reprisal, so they returned the $4.6 million. Here's what I learned today. I just mentioned earlier, Jameis Winston and the New Orleans Saints are very close to signing a new deal. How about this? In the last 3 years, Taysom Hill, who is now the backup, who's also like a H-back guy, tight end.
Everything.
He can play everything for him. In the last 3 years, Taysom Hill has completed 7 passes to the Saints. Do you know how many Jameis Winston passes also known as interceptions, have been completed to the Saints.
That's good.
10.
They play twice a year.
10.
Ooh.
He's actually completed 3 more to the Saints than Hill has.
Not good. I think Sean Payton will make him better.
I do too. But look, the quarterback whisperer is supposed to be Bruce Arians. So if he couldn't do it, but Peyton's pretty good. I'll give you that.
Yeah, for sure. Here's one, and I think my research is correct. I spent some of the weekend, not all weekend by any means, doing this. We're not going to have any Major League Baseball games for the month of April. There's not going to be that big a miracle occur that we have a game either tomorrow, Wednesday, or Thursday, are we?
No. I can guarantee you we're not having those.
First time, no baseball, not a single game. Baseball started in 1871. This will be the first April without one game since 1883. And if we go without a game in May, it'll be the first time ever. And we're going without a game in May.
Yeah, we are, because May is Friday.
Well, at the end of May.
Okay.
If we hadn't had a game, it'll be the first time since 1871, but the first time since 1883, not at least one game in the month of April.
That is absolutely incredible. I mentioned a little bit earlier, we thought the NBA teams might be returning to their practice facilities as early as the end of this week. Now that has been pushed back. I think I saw, and this is a Woj story, till May 8th. And believe it or not, it came from the Atlanta Hawks, even though the governor there is pushed for the opening of the state of Georgia.
Hawks know better.
The Atlanta Hawks knew better, and they said, no, we're not comfortable doing that.
Dave, I think you're going to see that with restaurants around Memphis, businesses around Memphis. Okay, just because you can doesn't mean we're ready. And I think you'll see people ride it out till we don't see a second shutdown. I could have done without this, and I mean this sincerely, because he was a nice young man, and I liked his brother that was also employed at Ole Miss. The dad, quite a different story, but from the #1 high school quarterback in the country, and he was a football mercenary in high school, to so poorly coached at Ole Miss by Hugh Freeze and by Phil Longo, to then to Michigan and not letting Jim Harbaugh coach him. Shea Patterson, undrafted. What a sad story.
It is. Well, just to
some of it his fault.
That guys like Eason and Fromm, when they first came up, weren't they considered the best quarterbacks? You know,
Eason was in the same class with Shea, and they were 1-2, 2-1,
right.
And then Fromm was the year behind that.
Right.
But
so you're talking about 3 quarterbacks that were certainly in their high school senior class.
Yeah, and we see it a lot at that
considered
position.
In the top 2 or 3 of the country in each class.
Yeah, and we saw
none
it with
of them
Mitch
got
Mustang.
drafted. Yep.
And which was sad. But for Shea Patterson, he was so horribly coached at Ole Miss by Freeze and by Phil Longo and he was very undisciplined. He always, one thing about a scrambler, it's hard to take the scramble out of a scrambler. He always wanted to kind of kick it and run or ad-lib a play instead of just running the play as called, but his mechanics were out of whack, and then he didn't let Harbaugh coach him.
Yeah, it's how much of that really, though, is on the coach and how much of that is on the kid? Maybe it's a combination a bit, but
it is.
I think you got to really look in the mirror if you're Shea Patterson.
He does.
Yeah, I think that is for sure. We definitely want to thank Ryan Poe, first time he's ever been on our show. It came on a good day with the mayoral press conferences. We learned a lot from him. We got to thank David Cobb. We got to thank Big Joe Klein. I always enjoy chatting with him. We got a little insight into The Last Dance. We'll talk a little bit more about that as the week progresses, and then Bruce Marshall on a Monday for maybe the first time in our history. That'll do it for us. Same time, same place tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody.
Did you know nearly 40% of men under 40 and over 75% of men over the age of 40 experience sexual performance concerns? At the Memphis Men's Clinic, their experienced physician performs a comprehensive evaluation that determines which specific issues may interfere with your sexual performance. These issues can vary and range from anxiety to medical issues, low testosterone, or erectile dysfunction. The Memphis Men's Clinic has evaluated hundreds of men of all ages over the years and reestablished a normal sexual life. The Memphis Men's Clinic will work aggressively to resolve issues and allow you to restore your sexual health and overall well-being. That's the Memphis way. If you're 20 years old or 90 years old, come and get cared for the Memphis way. Treatment that's based on your specific needs after a professional clinical evaluation.